Welcome back. It is episode 121. I am your host, Jacob Harris, and this podcast is brought to you by Achievement Apex and Power Pit Rockingham. Today, I am joined yet again by Will Blunderfield. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks so much for having me on your show again.
Oh,
It's
it's
always
good.
great to talk to an Australian. I love your guys' accents. They're so sexy and powerful. It's
I
very bro-y. Hello, how you going, bro? So good to see you. Oh
I
my
don't quite have that.
God. Let's play footy, bro. Oh my God, let's get naked and rub our mushrooms together, bro.
That's
I
what
wonder
it
what
is.
your balls smell like after a workout, bro.
What an intro. That's.
I know.
I felt like I had to introduce you, and I was like, I've got to be so. There's so many things you do, and I was like, I've got to make this such a great intro. It's like sexual kung fu vocal coach, and I was like trying to think of a way to phrase it, but I feel like what you've just done has almost just anything I could have said, it would have trumped, because that was just the best
Thank
intro.
you.
I feel like people are going to remember that one.
Thank you so
um
much.
no, it's good. I had to talk to you again, and it's always, obviously when we kind of dealt with it, like it's always a pain, like the time different stuff, like I have a friend who's in
Yeah.
Canada at the moment. It's always so hard.
hmm
But I'm really glad I've got you here again, and I received quite a lot of feedback from the podcast when we did it, right? Because a lot of what I'd done so far was, I don't know what word I want to use for it, maybe a little bit more tame.
Yes.
A lot of just kind of like lifting, or it was like someone who maybe did something else. But a lot of what you did kind of shocked people, and I think for me it was
Right.
like I watched what you did with obviously Andrew and the now Channel 5, but it was All Gas No Breaks. Um,
Right.
it We had to talk. I was interested to speak to you regardless, but a lot of the reaction from people with me, right, where people were like, is he serious? Or is it
Right.
this guy's gonna is he a comedian? This is like a thing he's doing, right? Because obviously people do that sort of stuff. And I was like, no, like he's being serious, right? And
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
as we talked about last time, it's because some people can't handle uh, I guess, like what's the word that I'm thinking of? Like
Well, it's just so out there. A lot of the things that I do are so like people haven't maybe been exposed to them. So they're like, is this real? Like, could this person, because a lot of people underneath the comments of that documentary, people are like, is this like just what you reified is like, is this actually a real person or is he putting this on?
yeah, it's
It's
like because
real.
you're very well, you're like very blatant as well, right? And
Mhm.
as we spoke about before, anxiety is like a probably bigger problem than it's ever been. So people, and I
Yes.
work in retail at the moment, and it's insane just on a daily basis, the awkward interactions I have with people, simply because people can just like literally not have conversations. Like I will be in a room
hmm
with someone will come in and say, oh, can I have this? And then that person will give it to maybe someone that I'm with. They'll leave the room for a second and check some stock or something, and I'll be left in the room with this person. And
hmm
if I don't say anything to them, they won't address me. And
Right.
they'll be like, oh, hey, how's your day going? Rah, rah. If I do talk to them, a lot of the time they won't hold any eye contact with me. They'll
Right.
say a lot of generic things to kind of like avoid having a proper conversation. If you were like, oh, hey, how are you? They'll, yeah, I'm good, thanks. It's really like standoffish, where
Yeah.
the way you do things, I think, is like the entire opposite of all of that, right? You're very happy to like talk about anything. You're very open-minded, and you don't get offended by what someone's saying, even if they're disagreeing with you. I suppose if someone was like attacking you aggressively and being abusive, it's different. But you're very open-minded, and you're, I guess, like for you, you're passionate about what you're talking about, which is what a lot of people don't
Yes.
have now as well. A lot of people
Yeah.
work too much and don't have a lot of good relationships and aren't very good at being in touch with themselves emotionally. So passion's something they lack. Right? I think that's something you have a lot
Mm,
of.
thank you. Yeah, I look around in Vancouver where I live, there's a lot of sort of woke culture, and sometimes I'll be, going for a run and somebody will give me the sideways glance, maybe because they've seen the documentary, or maybe it's because I'm wearing sandals as I'm running, Uh, but I'm kind of just like, I'm selective. Like sometimes I can be a bit standoffish as well if I sense that the person is not kind. But if somebody's kind, I'm very open. For example, I was wearing a choose love shirt at near the beginning of the whole everything shutting down with the world. And this woman in the elevator, she's like, "Oh my God, like you're such an anti-vaxxer, that choose love shirt." Like I saw people wearing that at like one of those anti-vaxxer rallies. And I was like, actually, it was a freedom rally. And my friend made me this shirt and gave it to me as a gift. And I honestly believe we should all have our own beliefs and get along with each other. And then the elevator opened, it was my floor, and I was like, have a great night. Like
Yeah.
I think the shirt says love is my new normal on the front, and on the back it says choose love. And so that's my MO to the best of my ability. It's kind of like my teacher Danielle Laporte. She says, keep your heart wide open, but then put up a big fucking fence so that not everybody's allowed to like just come in and shit all over your lawn. And so if I sense somebody is not respectful, I'll just, I've had to block and ban a lot of people in the last 3 years, not because my heart wanted to block them, but because of my own increasing self-respect and cherishing of self. And yeah, so thank you. I'm glad that you feel that I'm open, and I really try to be. And I've been learning how to put up a big fence with people who, it's kind of like the Bible says, don't cast your pearls before swine. And that doesn't mean that people are swine, but if it's like, go where you're deserved. Somebody told me that once, go where you're deserved. That was back when I was an alcoholic and just hanging out with like people who are not maybe the best people for me to be hanging out with, doing coke and alcohol and stuff. And I always remembered this mentor. He said, go where you're deserved. And I thought, I like that.
I like that too. It's like similar, something I guess people can relate to, but something I can relate to, like because of not necessarily a cocaine addiction. Probably would have done more of it when I was younger. I always just found it to be very expensive, especially where I was anyway.
Oh yeah, isn't it expensive? It was like $80 for a tiny, tiny little bag when I used to do it. I did it kind of between 2014 and 2016. And then I was at a party and this guy was like just randomly talking about coke, and he's like, did you know that, he's like, my friend tested 15 different samples of coke around Vancouver from different drug dealers, and he could only find about 6 or 7% coke in any given sample. The rest was just baby powder and fentanyl. And I was like, what? So I'm not even paying for coke? I was like, fuck that. So that actually helped me quit, because I was like, I'm spending all this money for baby powder and fentanyl. Fuck. It's not even cocaine. Okay, I'm stopping this.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, people. That's the other thing. People cut it and stuff. I've heard that. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that it's a lot cheaper in like UK. Apparently in the UK it's a lot cheaper, and it could just be that they cut it more or something. But I've heard it's like significantly cheaper there, because I've had friends that are from there, and they're like, "Oh no, like it's definitely a lot more." Well, like for me, I just smoked a lot of marijuana growing up because it was like it's very cheap, like right, and it was like. It was so much cheaper than alcohol. At least it would last you longer, and it was like just like less side effects. You didn't get hungover. Even Coke, right? You have to come down from it. But
I would say cannabis is definitely a better choice for many people than something that's man-made and cut with crap and like Coke or something like that. So for sure. And even alcohol is, for so many of us, it's very, very addicting, and it really makes you make bad choices, and not good for a lot of people. So some people can really thrive on it, I guess. But I think for most people, it's very, very not a good substance compared to something like cannabis, which if used responsibly could potentially be helpful for some people at certain times in their lives.
Absolutely. And then once again, it just comes down to abuse. Like, anything that you do, if you're going to like abuse it, you can always find like a negative in it. So like obviously something like, smoking marijuana is like that it can be only a problem if you kind of like make it one, where obviously I know plenty of people that just use that as more a remedy, like, and they don't even smoke all the time. And then when they do, it's just more to relax, and they have no issues with it at all. You know what I mean? And even then now there's a lot of healthier ways to do it, right? You don't even have to smoke it anymore. So like people have found an even healthier way to consume it.
Totally. And like organic versus, glyphosate sprayed cannabis, for example, there could be maybe a better choice to get organic if you can afford it, rather than something that's been sprayed with atrazine that's going to shrink your nuts.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's, I don't know how to put it. I don't want to sound maybe pompous, or I don't know how you put the word or whatever, but I'm very happy with my nut size. I've always been.
You got a good nut size?
I'm happy with my nut size. How
old are you again?
28.
28. Yeah, and how often do you ejaculate on average?
It's honestly, it's hard because I don't really I have like a partner currently, and it's so same I'd say to you last time as well. So it's not something that I don't do it on my own anymore. So it's like it's
I
hard to
see.
like count it. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be like, oh, because obviously when you're single, then sometimes you're like, oh, I might. I think a lot of guys probably do it maybe like every night, right? Before they go to bed or something.
Yeah.
It's like a ritual sort of thing. Where to me, I don't do it anymore because I have a
Oh,
partner.
wow. Oh,
So
good for you.
oh, it's good. It's good. It's yeah. I mean, one thing that works well is because of just the way the schedule works sometimes that I guess I don't really think about. That's probably different to when we spoke last because of um, just the way my partners work and everything works like that. Sometimes we don't, see each other for like maybe 4 to 5, maybe even 7 days sometimes. So now when I think about it, when
Okay.
I am doing it, it's probably only 2 weeks out of every month, which
Oh, that's great.
that's
That's
probably
like,
better,
yeah,
right?
most guys should ejaculate twice a month, according to my teacher. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that really helps the balls stay nice and plump. Like I've seen so many ball sacks in my day from teaching 15 years of naked men's yoga. And you can tell if a guy's been ejaculating too much, like the balls kind of, they're not emitting the potency that they could. And they kind of atrophy a little bit. And the penis kind of shrinks in and turns into a little kind of clit. And yeah, I think it's a combination of excessive masturbation, atrazine, glyphosate, all these chemicals that they spray in the food, which act as xenoestrogens on the body. Like they're even measuring the anogenital distance, which is a marker for masculinity, masculinization of the womb, of the fetus in the womb. And mothers who've been exposed to high levels of pesticides, their baby boys have a very small anogenital distance, which means they don't have as much testosterone. They weren't exposed to as much testosterone in the womb. So you can go into PubMed. Anybody who's interested, just type in anogenital distance, um, atrazine, ATRAZINE, glyphosate, GLYPHOSATE, and you can. I'm not just pulling this out of my ass because I know it sounds kind of like I am.
No, I'm interested. That's just this is like I'm big on. I have a like a podcast like something that will be coming out soon with another person that I have a lot of respect for. He is a gentleman by the name of Connor Walsh. He has when he was younger used to play professional baseball and then ended up
Mhm.
actually having to go on testosterone replacement therapy when he was 15 because whatever he was doing and the way he was training, he'd actually depleted his entire natural testosterone. And obviously, at that point, it was like it got so bad to a point that maybe if he had been around people that were maybe a little bit like more interested in increasing it naturally and stuff, things maybe would have gone different for him. But he understands that his life is the way that it is, and I know that he doesn't regret it because now that he's a competitive powerlifter, but he wasn't able to get it from the doctors because obviously he was like 15 and was like, he went to go see them and they were like, we're not giving it to you, even though it is low, because they were just trying to give him like antidepressants and shit. And he was like, I don't want any of that.
Yeah.
So he ended up having to supplement it himself.
Uh-oh.
So one of the things that we talk with, like the idea behind the podcast is going to be essentially because he's been on performance enhancing drugs since he was 15 and I've never taken any. So we really want to explore it from an athletic perspective and primarily, I guess, to do with like hypertrophy and weightlifting. We really want to just talk about like the differences between like why people use them and if people should use them and like just kind of explore it because there is definitely a time and a place for performance enhancing drugs in people that want to be athletes to that extent.
Mhm.
And obviously it's a personal choice, just like it is for
Yeah.
you or me to take a drug, right?
And there's
Um,
other ways, as you were touching on, there are other ways to increase your testosterone, perhaps in less invasive, instead of having to inject a synthetic testosterone into your thigh, there's something called mineral shilajit. I work for a superfoods company called Chalk, CHOQ, code 34chalk at chalk.com. And it's backed by like 14 clinical trials. It's called Chalk Daily. And it's one of the ingredients is the 500 milligrams of Prima V shilajit, which is basically humic and fulvic compounds, compressed plant matter from mountain crevices for over 5,000 years. And it's like almost like a tarry kind of goo, but they've synthesized it into a capsule. And it's been shown to actually increase free and total testosterone in male. So that's just one example. There's also tons of herbs. For example, deer velvet antler, all these things that we think, oh, but it's from ancient China. It's probably not that powerful. It can be very powerful. And also can make you feel really sexy and juicy and plump up those nuts. Uh, so I just encourage anybody who wants to increase their testosterone, check out some of these Chinese herbs. They're pretty powerful.
Yeah, well, that's part of what the conversation is going to be, right? Because I think I'm almost like I'm 28, so I'm at a point now where I'm like pretty decided, right? Like if I was going to use like drugs or steroids, I probably would have by maybe like the age of 25, So for me, I'm pretty decided on
Yeah.
it. I'm happy being like
And your friend is, when you say he was using testosterone, was he also injecting steroids or taking steroids?
yeah. So testosterone
That
replacement
is it.
therapy. Yeah. Like it,
Is
so they,
basically steroids.
well, yeah, it
Same thing.
is. It is that. So you can get it from doctors and stuff. It's actually huge in America, to be honest. Like it's massive.
Tren? Is it called Tren?
No,
Tremble? Tren?
no. So what you're talking, so that like steroids, and this isn't something I'm gonna try and describe because I'm not that well versed on it, but Connor could describe it in his sleep probably. But it's there's different kinds of steroids, and
Yes.
there's ones that are more like androgynous, and then there's like different names for stuff. And I could even have that wrong, but he broke it down for me one day in the
Yes.
conversation. Um,
Some
and
make you more gay.
yeah, I would. I mean, it'd be an
More
interesting.
plates, more dates was talking about that. The guy, the YouTube dude, more
Yeah,
plates, more
Derek.
dates.
Yeah,
Derek. Yeah.
yeah.
So the Tremblin, I think it is Tren for short. A lot of guys on Reddit are like expressing how like they take these certain steroids and it makes them actually just want to suck cock every day and receive their bestest bro's penis into their rectum. From just because it's interesting when we screw with our hormonal balances, there's nothing wrong with same-sex erotic attraction, but if it's being fueled by a synthetic chemical, I don't think it's very authentic. That's all. Because
That sounds like you would make the argument for the other way around, right? Like if someone was gay, you would
yeah,
be like, take this drug to be straight. It's just as bad.
exactly. And same-sex erotic bonding proclivities have been around since ancient Greek times. We know from archaeological digs that the Greeks were like obsessed with like checking each other's penises and balls out, oiling each other up. They would even like in the initial Olympics, you had to be a dude, you had to be naked, and then you had to take your foreskin and basically tie it up. Do you have a foreskin or are you circumcised?
I'm not circumcised, but I don't have a lot
Well,
of
that's great.
excess, if that's what you would call it.
Excess foreskin? Okay, you don't have a super long like anteater snout. Okay,
I would say it's just like a medium amount, but I don't measure
medium
it to be
size.
fair. But I definitely don't
Okay.
think I could tie a knot in it. That would be too difficult, I think.
Oh, what you do is what they did is they take the string, they pull the foreskin forward, and then they kind of wrap and make a little bow around the foreskin because they believe that you had to be naked to be an athlete, but that you could not allow your foreskin to roll back and expose your mushroom head because that was considered barbaric and rude. So they would oil up their bodies, tie up their foreskins, and they would basically just like do wrestling and javelin and shot put, all the men naked, and only men were allowed to watch in the stands. No women were allowed to watch the initial Olympics. So it was all men watching men basically do what we would call gay shit. And I think it's really a natural testosterone boost. On PubMed, I've been reading studies that show when a man watches another man rail a female on like a pornographic film while he strokes his manhood, as long as he doesn't release his seed, it actually causes his testosterone levels to go up. So there's ways to like trigger your body to secrete more testosterone. And one of those ways is watch other men do naked gay shit without coming. Gay by our standards. In ancient Greece, there was no such thing as gay or straight. There was just, are you a virile male or are you pinching yourself off from your masculinity by not really, taking chances and being that, Socrates says no man deserves to reach old age without first having fully developed his athletic prowess. And I just find that fascinating. And even to top it off, here's the icing on the cake that I just learned about. In the Olympics, after they would win or lose, whatever, the winning, say they were in a wrestling competition, the winning wrestler, these beautiful women would come onto the field and they would take this kind of rock thing and they would just comb all the sweat and the dirt off the dude's skin, probably with a bit of his pre-cum and everything. And then they would bottle it. And the gymnasium where that dude worked out would sell it to other dudes as a form of like performance enhancer. It was like ancient Greek steroids was like dudes selling their sweat and pre-cum to each other to rub on each other's bodies. And they never once thought, oh, is that gay or straight? It was just what they would do. And I just think that's just I find it so fascinating because so many like modern dudes are like, yeah, my company's called Spartan Athletica or something. I'm like, well, then why are you wearing clothes when you're working out? Like the Spartans were always naked and they were like hugging with their dicks touching and stuff. And I just think it's so cute that we've kind of like taken that part out of, it's like we've forgotten these ancient ways, and it's kind of the violence of Spartan culture has been glorified in movies like 300, but then they edit out the other aspect of Spartan life, which was same-sex erotic platonic bonding, which I think can be a natural testosterone boost. And it's free. All you have to do is just hug your bro with your mushroom heads touching without going into gay panic. Because gay panic would release estrogen. So you want to train yourself to be able to release testosterone because steel sharpens steel. And that to me is natural same-sex bonding versus the steroid-induced homosexuality, which would actually pinch you off from your masculinity. For example, a lot of steroids will cause your muscles to get bigger, but your penis and your balls will actually shrivel in and become less masculine. Have you heard about this?
I have. I don't. It's hard to, I guess, get to a point of disagreement because I understand that you've obviously researched this. As far as I'm aware and what I've read and people I've spoken to and all things like that, your actual dick itself isn't affected actually much at all. But it's actually balls 100%. Your balls atrophy.
Okay, so the balls do atrophy?
Yeah, I have mates who are literally like, yeah, like they're right up there. Like they're like.
I have a question about steroids. Is it true that some steroids will actually shrink the penis and testicles?
Yes, the use of anabolic steroids, particularly in excessive amounts and without proper medical supervision, can potentially lead to side effects such as testicular atrophy, shrinkage of the testicles. This happens because anabolic steroids can suppress the body's natural production of testosterone, leading to a reduction in testicular size. It's important to note that these effects can vary among individuals, and the misuse of steroids can have serious health consequences. If you have concerns or questions about steroid use, it's advisable to consult with a healthcare professional.
But what about the penis? Does the penis shrink?
There isn't substantial evidence to suggest that anabolic steroid use directly causes permanent shrinkage of the penis. However, it's important to note that the misuse of steroids can lead to hormonal imbalances affecting reproductive organs and sexual function. Any changes in the size...
Awesome. So yeah, I think you're right. It mostly affects the testicles. Have you heard of this? So it's a free thing. I think Elon Musk is involved with it. It's called ChatGPT.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That just sounded like Andrew Huberman or something. I thought you changed
right? Yeah.
Your Siri or something.
No, the app, like the ChatGPT app, it's just the free version. Now you can actually speak, and it will answer you in that really non-robotic AI voice. Like it even does the ums, and it'll sometimes go, like and like swallow, and like it sounds like a real person. It's pretty compelling. Yeah.
Yeah, that's freaky. I mean, that's cool though. But yeah, as you can see there, it's just more that it doesn't. There's no like.
It's more the testicles issue.
Definitely.
But to me, that would be huge because I couldn't feel my balls for most of my life. I want to do everything I can to have bigger balls, not smaller balls. And so that's why I'm looking for, I'd love to have like a female friend who I could eat her pussy pretty much every day, because I've been studying this bacteria inside the vagina called L. reuteri, L-R-E-U-T-E-R-I. And it's been shown in preclinical trials to grow the testes. So I'm, a lot of my clients, I'm telling them, they're like, hey, Will, I want to grow my balls. And I say, eat your girlfriend's pussy every day and just really slurp up the fluids inside of her pussy and really enjoy that, because that can really help your balls potentially get bigger.
Well, I mean, just out of respect for just privacy and things, I guess I won't say too much, but that's good to know for that to be confirmed, because that's a part of my life. So I'm glad to hear.
Maybe that's why your balls are so big.
Who knows, man?
Because you've been eating lots of pussy.
it's hard. Like I said, I don't measure anything, but I'm happy with my setup. I think that's what it comes down to. But I just have a few questions about what you said.
Yeah.
So like I said, the ball shrinkage thing, we talked about this the other day, and I asked one of my friends as well, because one of the things they talk about with like sterility, like so people will like, I don't know if that's the word for it, but it's one of the guys
impotency.
Impotency. So you say like he was like talking about, I asked him, because I had a guy say to me once that when he was on a lot of gear, like I said, man, like honestly, it's crazy in some industries, and the one I'm in, I was like, sometimes I'm in a room full of people and I'm like the only one who's not on it, and I don't judge people.
Oh wow.
People can do what they want, sort of thing.
Yeah. Different strokes for different folks. Yeah.
Exactly. And a lot more women are using it now as well. And then that's a whole different
really
sort of side effects as well. That they suffer a lot more side effects. So they generally don't take a lot of the same stuff, and they have to be pretty careful depending on if they care about those side effects. But so one of the things is, I said to him, I was like, I had a friend on it, and he was like, yeah, like when I ejaculate or whatever, it's super watery. And I was like, isn't that like a bad thing? And he was like, yeah. And he goes, well, I don't know. It's like, is it maybe hydration or something? I was like, it could be, but is it always like that? And he was like, yeah. So then I asked him,
ever since he started the steroids?
Yeah, he reckons he noticed a difference. Like he brought it up, right? And then I did a podcast recently and asked another guy about it who's like on plenty. And he was like, no, that doesn't happen to me. He goes, he should probably get that checked out. So it's interesting in terms of like, not everyone's going to experience the same things. I also think it's interesting what you brought up about the fact that like while someone might be watching porn, their testosterone increases, because that in itself is an interesting topic in terms of like, if something's happening periodically, it's beneficial, but how beneficial to a level of like, let's say someone's like, okay, when you're asleep, if you sleep and you sleep well for 10 minutes while you're asleep, you would have super strength. You'll be like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of good, but like, I can't use it in that period of time. So let's say, for instance, like if my testosterone is really high because I'm watching porn, I'm jerking off, which is a good thing. I just wonder, and I'm interested in how much that carries over to like your overall testosterone, and if it like, you know what I mean? If it actually
does
would
it stick?
it. Yeah.
And it's not the masturbation, it's the touching your penis, but then basically what we call edging.
Yeah.
That's what's been shown to help. And also maybe edging or not ejaculating for 7 days and then just ejaculating once a week. There was a study in Japan showing that could increase testosterone. But yeah, I wonder how long it would stick. I mean, I just feel more vim and vigor when I don't ejaculate as much. And now that I've trained my psyche to stay out of gay panic when I'm naked with other men, A, there's less lust, paradoxically. And then B, I do feel a charge. I just feel more in my body. And I call it the testiculum. It's an invisible mycelium network of energetic connection between the ball sacks of men in the tribe. Are you familiar with Aubrey Marcus?
No.
Podcaster? No. He's an American podcaster out of Austin, the Aubrey Marcus podcast. And he had Dr. Zach Bush on, and they were talking about ball cupping rituals. I guess one of Aubrey's friends went to live with the Sambia tribe in Papua New Guinea, and they got him to get naked and they cupped his exposed scrotum and said, "I see you, brother." And I was reading the Aramaic version of the Bible, like some of the original translations, like not the King James one. And it said like Abraham's servant cupped his loins in agreement. Like they would cup each other's ball sacks. But in the King James version, they changed it. It said Abraham's servant put his hand on his thigh in agreement. So they made it less sexual or less testicularly focused. But it's just cool to see all these examples. And apparently in ancient Greece, the word testicle comes from the root word testify, because in court, they would not testify in a Bible. They would testify on each other's ball sacks. And so there's something about, they talk about Reiki energy, like Jesus healing with his hands. I found it very powerful to, cup my bestest bro's balls and have him cup my balls while breathing and looking into each other's eyes. It's like really confronting, but when I can get over the gay panic, I can really feel this pulsation of our sacks coming into a greater coherence with a higher level of testosterone and vim and vigor and really being grounded. I always say the world doesn't need more balloons. The world needs more grounded men who are anchored in their nuts. And what better way to help cultivate that anchoring and that brotherhood than, exposing our scrotums to each other and cupping them. It's such a powerful act to cup your bestest bro's nutsack, I find. I know it's a lot for a lot of people to even think about it, because I think when most people think about that, like, oh, fuck, like that would mean that I was gay, or, oh, that would be weird, they'd probably release adrenaline, cortisol, and estrogen. Whereas the ancient Greeks and the Sambia, when they're cupping each other's nutsacks, they're releasing dopamine, serotonin, and testosterone and oxytocin, bonding hormones. So I always, get guys to start with just eye gazing rituals, fully clothed, look into your bro's eyes. Even if that's too much, focus on the left eye, because then it gives you something to focus on. So it's not like we always get butt naked and cup each other's sacks. That's a more advanced practice for people in our society, because we've been so far removed from any sort of naked male platonic erotic ritualistic behavior. But I just find that in and of itself could be that if guys could get over their gay panic, I think just ball cupping and hanging out naked with your bros and sensing the subtle pheromones and just seeing a bunch of well-developed cocks and balls, I think that can have a huge impact on our testosterone levels if we can get over the hurdle of the gay panic.
Yeah, I can understand the idea behind it. I mean, because this will be interesting. I've had to have a break. We spoke about some things before the podcast, so I had to have a bit of a break over the last month. It's coming up to 2, but as it comes to January, I think I'm going to go back and do it again. But for about 8 months, I started doing jiu-jitsu.
Oh, nice. I love jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. So it's like, I guess
that's a really powerful way. Yes.
Yeah.
Powerful way to have that testicular coherence. Yeah, you definitely very, very broy. Very good.
And can feel like so confronting, right? Like, so when I first started, I'm sure you're familiar with like guard positions, right? So like the idea that I would be in someone's guard, they'd have their legs wrapped around me, right? We would be like dick to dick, right? And they would be like
totally.
Get closer, right? Like, I need you to be closer so I can show you this move. Or like you'd be watching 2 dudes doing it, and they would be like explaining it and looking at you as they're doing it and stuff. And initially, like, you are caught off guard. And it's even, I'm sure you
totally
the internet.
Even I was, yeah.
yeah. Like you kind of can't believe it, right? Because like it's like everyone's pretty masculine too. And some of these guys, it's like they're black belts, right? Like you can be like, oh, that's gay. Well, I mean, that guy would kick your ass. You can call him gay.
Exactly.
Like,
and this coalesces with the whole Spartan ethos. Like in ancient Sparta, they were doing these types of broy calisthenics, and it was even more so that they were naked while they were doing basically jujitsu. So sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, but
but it was so masculine, and they all had wives, and that's why I always say that doing these kind of broy naked things, or even jujitsu, it doesn't make you gay. If you have an attraction to women, doing broy erotic, slightly erotic things like, having your face in your bro's crotch during jujitsu and not going into gay panic and just breathing in the subtle smell of his sweat. If you can stay out of gay panic, that behavior is actually that experience, I should say, is actually going to make you more attracted to and attractive to very highly feminine women, because attraction is based in polarity. So if you're doing things that sharpen your sun essence, or your divine masculine, or your yang, Y-A-N-G, your yang polarity, that's going to actually make you more attracted to and attractive to people with a very yin polarity. That's what David Data says, who wrote Way of the Superior Man. Attraction to females is based in polarity. So I think that's a huge thing to hit home always with my clients, because most of my clients are men who have girlfriends and wives and children. That actually doing quote unquote gay shit actually makes you more heterosexual if you have that proclivity in the first place. It's going to sharpen that proclivity, not diminish it.
Yeah, I agree. So for me, it was confronting at first, and I agree with what you're saying. It's like I kind of make the joke about it, right? On the internet, it's made jokes of a lot, right? It's like,
yes,
it's gay, and it's like not practical and all this sort of stuff, right? But for me, I'm like, as soon as someone says something, I'm like, well, I'll tell you what. I said, you know what I reckon? And people hate it because they're always just like, oh, it's your way out of it. And I've only been doing it for like 8 months, right? It's not like I was professional, I mean, it was still new to me, but I did a couple of other things. Like I tried kickboxing and boxing and that one areas. And I've done boxing before and I do like it, and fitness and everything. It's great. But there's something about jiu-jitsu that I liked better because
me too.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you are kind of working with someone. There was definitely a lot of respect between people when we were on the mats, and I liked that people. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a closeness with someone, but a trust closeness. Neither of you are trying to
Yeah.
hurt each other, but you're putting pressure on each other, and I kind of like that. And I think it was probably good for me mentally and,
Yeah.
and for my anxiety to be put in situations where someone's putting a lot of pressure on me, but I'm not in danger. I'm not in danger,
Yes.
but I'm being pushed to feel like I am, which is probably a good thing to subject yourself to
Yeah.
improve sensitivities, right? So
Yeah, it's like yoga. It's a form of partner yoga.
yeah, a similar thing, right? Like, yoga's
Mhm.
not about being in pain or stretching to pain, right? It's about being in a position that, especially for beginners, right? They can be uncomfortable initially, but once you teach them how to breathe properly, and obviously they do it reoccurringly, they're doing it. They do it reoccurringly for a reason, right? They're coming back because it does feel good. And
Exactly.
that I walked out, the first time or the first couple of times, and I remember that feeling. I was like, that felt good, and so the thing
Yeah.
about it, I think, is that there's, like, as we talked about, there's that bonding side of it, but it's that side of it where, I was learning something, and I think that did something for me as well. I was also learning something, and that was really helpful. But it's
Yes.
like, it's definitely a joke, and it's in one of those things. And so with guys, I'm a bit like, well, when I'm doing it, it doesn't matter whether I'm in a position where, look, right, there's a guy, his dick's in my face, I'm on top of him, he's on top of me. It doesn't matter what position when I'm in. I never have an erection, right? It doesn't happen, right?
Exactly.
And not because I'm not like, oh, think about like, chalkboards and trying to distract myself. I just don't, right? Because
That's just it.
I am attracted to women. So I think a
Yeah.
lot of guys, when it comes to it, like, I'll make that joke. I'll be like, maybe you're just worried, right? Maybe you're worried
Yes.
that you're,
Oh, I think you hit the nail on the head. I
yeah,
think so many guys are scared. Oh, what if, I seep out a bit of pre-cum while I'm doing the Brazilian jiu-jitsu? Or what if my penis gets slightly gorged? What if that makes me gay? And
mm,
what we really want to share is that no, it doesn't make you gay or straight, because those words are only about 100 years old. They were invented by some idiotic doctor who wanted to pigeonhole and categorize people. I call it the age of narcissism. People, oh, I'm gay, I'm straight. And really, people think all these labels make them so unique when they're all exactly the same. They're just tools that the matrix or society uses to divide and control us. And what I found in my experience, being somebody who's more into other dudes, the more I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, the more I get naked and do cold plunging with my bros, and I just see penises all the time now, the more I teach naked yoga, the less my penis gorges with blood. Not that there'd be anything wrong with it gorging with blood, but it feels really, really good to just let it be in a very parasympathetic state, right?
mm,
Because ejaculation is associated with a sympathetic nervous system, interestingly enough. Whereas long states of just feeling full of yourself in a good way, that's associated with a parasympathetic nervous system, relaxed vagal tone. So when I'm able to cultivate that relaxed state of being naked around other men or doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, my penis doesn't get hard. It just might ever so slightly drop. The balls might slightly drop and just become a little bit more stag-like, more like a minotaur. But that feels so good. Nothing feels better than to just feel like one of the guys,
yeah.
you know?
I think, I mean, like, obviously, this is an area where people are going to differ, right? Like, and you're not even necessarily saying that everyone needs to do it to the extent that
No.
you do it or anything like that. It's just
And if your penis does get hard, that's fine too. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you're doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu and then you get this massive boner, that would be really uncomfortable. That'd be really awkward. Like,
mm,
who wants to have that experience? So what I'm saying is, like, if anybody who's worried about that, it's good to just train yourself to be able to, like, do things and have more, I call it turning your body into a massive cock. So it's kind of like, it's physics, right? Most guys have a very small balloon where they can feel their sexual charge, just the penis and testes, and maybe a bit of the prostate. In what I teach men is to actually have a huge balloon, your whole body and your electromagnetic field, to be able to store your sexual energy in. So just physics. You got a bigger balloon, so it's not going to just get stuck in your penis and testes when you get aroused and then you get a boner and then you have to come. right? You've got this huge balloon. You got what the yogis say 72,000 nadis or energy channels where you can shunt your sexual arousal from your penis and testes. Say you're having experience wrestling with a dude. Say you're a dude who identifies as gay. Say you're doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu with a really hot guy. His pheromones are just rubbing all over you. His penis is in your face. You're mounting each other in the BJJ. And then your penis starts to get a little bit gorged. And you're like, oh, fuck. You know, people are going to see that I'm erect. This is not appropriate. In that moment, I want you to breathe deep, bro. I want you to just enjoy the sensation of your penis slightly gorged, just because what you resist persists and what you embrace dissolves. So I want you to really embrace your slightly gorged penis in that very moment. Okay. Then I want you to feel the vitality. What does the vitality, the subtle arousal in your loins, maybe it's like a nice tingling sensation that's been invoked from the BJJ. I want, no pun intended, from the BJ. I want you to feel the juiciness, the life-giving vibration of your dick and balls in that now moment. And then I want you to smile into it, turning it into joy, because most guys would go into shame, which would just perpetuate the boner. I want you to turn it into joy and feel that tingling sensation now emanating from your penis and balls. Most of it's going to leave your penis and balls because you're doing BJJ. You're not about to have sex. You don't need it to be all there. You know, you're going to breathe 80% of the arousal energy from your penis and balls into the rest of your system. I call that a global big draw. And then it's just physics. You've got this huge, massive surface area to disperse that sexual arousal. You know, you could bring it to your musculature and then you could fucking beat the guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, interesting. I feel like that's not advice for me to take, because as I said,
not for you,
but that could help someone, you know.
But I think a lot of guys do worry, you know, and I think a lot of guys, their penises would get slightly gorged in certain situations and they'd be scared of that, or they'd think it was wrong. And it's not that it's wrong. It's just not appropriate when you're the goal is to fucking defeat the person, not to like have a boner in their face, you know?
Yeah. I feel like
in that context. So I'm just giving a tool to anybody who is worried. Jacob doesn't have to worry about that, but I think a lot of people would be, where I was worried initially. And I will share, the very first several times I hugged a man naked after cold plunging, my penis gorged to the point where it was almost inappropriate. And in that moment, I was very scared, because I was like, for example, me and one of my buddies, we cold plunged with a group of males and females. We were the only two dudes who would ever get naked. And we did a cold plunge for like 3 minutes. We got out and he came over to give me a hug. And our penises were touching and I could feel my penis starting to balloon. And I was like, oh, fuck, this is so awkward. And I basically just did what I just explained to your audience, and it completely changed the game. It was amazing. I went from like, oh shit, I'm a lusty person with my penis gorging, this is not appropriate situation, to, wow, I feel like one of the guys. I feel like a stag and I'm just hugging another stag and it just feels so natural. This is probably how the Spartans did it. Like our penises just were pulsing. Our penises and balls were communicating through the testiculum, a frequency of testosterone, empowerment, brotherhood, camaraderie, communion, integration. And then I let that feeling be felt not just in my penis and balls, but throughout my entire being. And I know my friend could feel it too. And it just made it like the best hug ever. And I think anybody could apply that. Whether or not your penis does gorge when you're doing any sort of bro bonding, whether it's BJJ or a hug, let your whole body feel it. Receive, you know, really be in your body. I think the foundation of any meditation or spiritual practice, and I think BJJ is a form of meditation, is to really be in the moment, really in your body. And that's going to make you a better athlete as well. You know, so yeah, I just really want to hit that home, that it's okay if your penis gorges, and here's something you can do to actually make it more appropriate and feel fucking amazing.
Man, it's a really unique outlook. And like I said, it's like, as I said, like I got like super interesting reactions when we talked last time. And for me, like the same thing that hit home for me is like, I would say to people, right? I'd be like, you know what? You know, Will is like hands down, one of the best people I've ever spoken to. They were like, really? And I was like, first of all, one of the nicest guys and most open-minded. I was like, but the best thing
Well,
about
thank
it
you.
is
I feel
that
the same about you. Thank you.
yeah, thanks, man. And I was like, the thing is, I was like, the way that he feels and how passionate he is about something is such a huge part of what makes me respect him, because I don't actually feel, because obviously some people were like, how come you didn't? And we spoke about with Andrew and stuff, because you said when they did the video with you, they were like laughing and struggling, right?
Oh yeah, they cut it all out because people are like, wow, they were able to keep such a straight face, but they were cackling for like a good half hour. I was surprised how well they were able to edit out all the cackling. It was pretty, I was impressed. I was like, wow, their editor is good. Maybe it was Andrew. I know he has a team sometimes who help him, but yeah.
Yeah, because same thing, right? Immediately, like obviously because he saw you in person, it'd been a little bit different, and like it's a bit more confronting because it's a first time thing where like it's different for me. It's easier for me, right? I was able to consume your content at a slower pace and from like a distance, and so like I don't think that I would have probably reacted the way they did anyway, because I just think as we spoke about, like typically just I think Americans are a little bit different. Australia, we're a little bit more out there as well, so I think we're
Yes.
yeah.
And there was a comedian, an Australian comedian making a joke. I can't remember his name, but he was talking about how like very not blasé, but kind of unfazed by things Australians can be. Like they could just stay very chill. It's like, the planes, oh, look, lightning just struck the plane. It's like, oh, it's just like he was making kind of these jokes about how Australians can just be very chill and not much will kind of ruffle their feathers.
I wonder who it is, because I almost feel like I've heard that one as well. And it's true, man. Like, honestly, it's crazy I remember I went like skydiving when I was like 17 here in like Pinjarra, which is kind of down south. And parts of Canada, I don't know Vancouver too well, but like same sort of thing where it gets real bushy and there's not as many houses and stuff. It was like kind of in that direction.
Nice.
And they couldn't get the plane started. Like they were like having trouble starting the plane, right? And I'm like freaking out a bit. I'm like worried and everything. But they're like, nah, she's right, mate. No, just hold on a second, Barry. We'll work it out, mate. Just fucking give her another one, give her another one. And they're like, trying to, and they're real Aussie, and they're real kind of like, probably sounds weird for me to put on an accent, but they sounded more Australian than I do. And they were like,
yeah, what city did you grow up in? Because your accent isn't as strong as like a lot of Australians that I know.
Oh, yeah, it's weird. I've always felt that too. I think, so I grew up in Western Australia, and so I grew up in Perth.
Like Perth? Okay.
Yeah, but the way that it is here would be similar to there. Like Perth is, it would take me maybe almost an hour, like 45 minutes to an hour to get to Perth. Like it's not, so I'm like down south from it. And then if you were to go like a further 2 hours from where I am and you went down, you can end up in places where there's like 10, 15 houses, like tiny little things that like don't like there's a couple of towns who like don't have like police stations or like shops or anything. And so it's kind of weird because sometimes in bigger countries, possibly like America or something, you have to drive further to find that, where here it's sort of strange the way that it's set out. I think this is more probably just like the left side of our country. So like Western Australia, Northern Territory, Adelaide, there's lots of space. There's lots of like bush and open space. Not that there isn't in Melbourne, but obviously there's a much bigger city in Melbourne. Like, and they have probably a bigger suburbia and stuff like that, where here it's like, yeah, right now, like I could drive to Harvey and that would take me an hour. I used to live there, and like you would love it, right? Because there's just like, there's a little bit of a town, but there's literally like one shopping center. The police station is attached to the courthouse, and there's not even actually police in the station. They have to come from like another town close by. And then like we always used to joke about it because it would be like you could get arrested and processed in the same day and then off to a jail or whatever. But I used to love it because it was good. It was good because I could run, right? Probably similar to yourself. Like if you've got it's so good for places to run.
Yeah, I love places where you can really have nature access really quickly.
Exactly. And so like, but people in those areas are what that guy's describing, like very chill. Like there could be something on fire and they'll look at it and be like, yeah, I'll just have to let it burn, mate. We'll just let it calm down. And then we just, do you want a beer? And you're like, there's something on fire.
We're going to fight the fire. Yeah.
Are we going to put this? And they're like, nah, let it burn, mate. There's nothing we can do. And it is so, there's probably equivalent of that in different countries, but that comedian,
I love that.
He's a capsuling like that. Sorry.
Do you watch Summer Heights High at all? Because they've got a lot of really strong accents in that.
We talked about this last time because it's like
Yes,
it's Chris Lilly, but obviously he has a lot of extras, so like
all of
that's a
his
good one
characters and
because
stuff.
yeah,
I know.
yeah, Jermaine,
It's so good. Oh my god.
yeah.
Oh my god, everyone's being a fucking bitch to me. Nobody understands me. Oh my
It's
god, I'll have no hesitation in smashing a fucking iPhone, you bitch.
it's funny because
What?
it's fairly rare that people do talk like that, but I 100% have met a few people that do talk like you definitely get more.
Really?
Like I said, it's got more to where up. That's probably more Melbourne, like because like I said,
Okay.
there's way more city, right? So there's a lot
I
more.
thought it was New South Wales. Oh my
Well, yeah,
god.
yeah, New South Wales, right? Or like Canberra, right? Like so, Canberra,
Uh-huh.
or like I joke with mates about it. Canberra's I've not been to Canberra, so it's like a total like bad, like I can't even say it. But like to me, Canberra in my head is literally almost just like a politician town. It's almost like no one else lives there
Oh,
and they're all wearing suits. You know what I mean? Like all I can think of is people like walking around and being like, "Yes, mate, I'm just here to get my coffee and talk about the Australian government." And you know, they're kind of like proper Australian people. They don't
right.
sound like that. Where here, like Western Australia, like I said, there's a lot of space. You can go all the way up to Broome, and like that's a whole different thing. And then you can go all the way down to
Uh,
like Albany, and people are like drunk at 10 o'clock in the morning, and
wow.
they got thongs on, and they're wearing a singlet, and you know what I mean. They're real bogan.
What
And
about Bondi? Have you been to Bondi? I follow the Bondi Boys on YouTube. I really
no,
like
I
them.
haven't.
The
I
Bondi
haven't.
hipsters.
No, I haven't. It looks beautiful there, obviously, but no, I haven't been. I've only been to Melbourne twice, and I went to the city, and like I just didn't. To me, I'm not. I didn't grow up in a city, so I don't like city.
Oh, it's not
Yeah.
your vibe. Yeah.
No, well, that's why
Yeah, no,
Canada.
as I get older, I'm liking rural places better too. I really just love being out in nature, and I can really sense the frequency of like a city versus like just a bunch of trees and nice lakes. It's just so much more calming on the nervous system.
It's a big part of why I want to come to Canada. I don't know if
Yeah,
it's
you
just
should come.
scene. Oh
Let's
man,
do some naked cold exposure. I won't cup your balls. Don't
it's
worry.
okay. It's all right. I'll warm
I
up to it.
probably wouldn't be able to fit
I
my
would.
hand
Yeah,
in them. It sounds like they're huge.
I haven't measured them, but I mean, I won't take.
I'd
I
have to
won't.
like use both hands for the first time. I'd have to like just be like, "Hello, namaste. Look at these big freaking Aussie balls. There's so much sperm. Oh my god, there's so much semen in there."
I will try to. I will try to make sure that you know that I'm full when I come over. You know, I'll have to make sure
Okay,
that
thank you.
I've been
Plump
ejaculated.
balls.
Yeah,
It's one
yeah,
requirement for our rituals is Jacob
yeah.
has to keep his balls plump, no ejaculation for at least 21 days before we do the ritual so that they can be nice and plump and emanating that testiculum vibration.
I'll make sure.
I love it.
I'll let my girlfriend know. I mean, the other thing about it as well is
Let your girlfriend know.
it,
She can film it.
it takes quite a while to get there. So that's the other thing too, right? So if I come over,
It is far, yeah.
I'm gonna have to come over for a bit of time. Like, so that's the other thing that I've always thought. I'm like, if I'm gonna go there, there looks like there's so many beautiful places there. And then since we spoke, and then I have one of my friends is over there at the moment visiting some family, and then there's just a couple of things I want to check out. And now I'm like, no,
Yeah.
this is going to be the one big trip that I do. And when I do it, I want to, obviously I have to make it work with work and stuff. And I would definitely be like thinking like a month minimum.
Oh yeah, it's so far you'd want to be here at least 4 weeks. I'm just looking at your biceps; they're huge. Like I can only imagine how big your balls are. Like your biceps are so big.
Well, I mean, it's a compliment. I think it's more of the shirt is probably helping me as well. But
Okay.
the other thing is, it actually doesn't work in your favor. So I appreciate the
Really?
compliment. But the thing is if everything else big, it makes your balls look smaller. When you think about it, right? If your
Oh,
legs are bigger, your balls look smaller in comparison. So it can actually be a hindrance. So
how's your penis? What's your penis like?
I mean, it's
You're intact. That's great.
I like it. I mean, I'm a fan of it. You know what I mean? I feel like
Does it kind of rest on your big balls, or is it kind of hang lower than your balls?
it's definitely not. You know how people have like like left or righties where it kind of hangs to one side. I don't have that issue, which is a preference of mine. You know,
Oh, nice. So it's
you know how
like just right down the middle
yeah, people like
of
how's
your
it hanging?
body.
It's like, oh, a little to the left. Like mine's just
Right.
yeah, it's always straight. But
Oh, that's cool.
it's not something I inspect a lot of. But I mean, all I can really say without coming across, I guess, to people that are listening and thinking, I guess, that it's an ego thing, and also I don't want to be disrespectful to my girlfriend, but I don't have it. You know, it's generally a good reaction. So I think to
Oh,
me,
that's good.
you know, you're good on science, right, and statistics. If you statistically have a good reaction each time
That's a good sign.
sees you,
It's a
Nick, then you're
nice,
going to be like,
a
oh,
nice
that's,
size.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, once you, like, yourself, right? You've seen thousands, right? Sometimes it's not the size.
Mhm.
Sometimes there's other
Exactly.
factors to, you can have a massive one, but it could not be very nice to look at.
Yes. And I was also, hearing that if it's too big, it can actually be painful for the woman.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like, we share the same thought on a lot of things, especially even just like with nutrition, where we talk about things like moderation. I think moderation
Yeah,
is like key in a lot of situations, right? You know, note if
totally.
it's not small or it's not big and you're just in an area of like being medium. I find the same thing about most things in life. I'm
Yes.
6'1", which is considered, or I'm almost 6'2",
Holy
and
shit. How big are your feet?
I don't have big feet, which is hilarious. They're just like size 10.
Oh,
I'm like size 10.
okay.
Um,
Nice. Nice.
my brothers have massive feet. I don't know why I don't, but I'm 6'2", but um, that's not considered average. But it's also not. I don't look weirdly tall either. When you see someone who's like 6'5",
Right.
6'6", it's not that there's a problem with that. But once again, I just love being in like a ground of like. I think
Yes.
as human beings, we are constantly, and probably why we have such obsessions with things like superheroes and Marvel movies, right? Because being average is something that like people almost don't want to be. But a big discussion I have with people a lot, especially when it comes to lifters and stuff like that, who have either really intense body weights because they have so much muscle mass, so they're 125, 130 kilos, or some of them are incredibly tall. I spoke to a man who was like 6'7", 6'8".
Wow.
Was that I don't know if I'm going to use, so the mortality rate, right, is one thing I brought up because I was like, I found it interesting, right? It's like overly as a human being,
Yes.
being an average weight, being an average height, and just all round kind of not pushing any crazy limits in your life and sort of living in an area of moderation is actually what not only helps you live the longest, but will also create probably the largest amount of quality in your life.
Yes.
Being bigger and having massive muscles isn't. I'm 100 kilos currently, and my plan isn't to stay at 100 kilos. I just kind of gained a lot of weight and I lift a lot, obviously. But my plan would be to be around probably 90 kilos because I know that I will be a lot healthier there.
Yeah.
So,
And it's all, isn't it more and more as we like come into this new age, like about how you want to feel? And also when you make it your intention to feel a certain way, that tends to reflect in how you look as well. I don't know.
absolutely,
I
how
feel
you
like some
move.
people are how you move,
Mm.
enjoying the journey. Like that's why I like to run, is to really get in the present moment and really just feel my body being its athletic self and just breathing. And I feel like sometimes in the past I was more concerned about how I wanted to look, and it wasn't as fun a life. And now it's a lot funner when it's like, well, what do I need to be, do, and have to feel the way I most want to feel? And how do I want to feel? I want to feel like a fucking minotaur. I want to feel like a wild beastie. I want to feel like one of the guys. I want to feel my balls tingle, all these things. And yeah, and then the paradox is you start to look better because your glandular system is secreting more optimally because you're in higher states of joy more often and empowerment. And
Yeah,
this
yeah,
impossible to separate the psyche from the body.
I agree. I agree. Ty. It's a transition that I've been making over the last couple of years as well, and it's like at a point where
Nice.
uh it's lifting weights is good. I love it, and I definitely enjoy it, and I always will do it because I think there's all different kinds of benefits to it, and
Mhm.
I like having muscle mass. It's something that I want, but I definitely have
Yeah.
grown. I've grown uh, in an industry now where, like I said to you before, we're seeing a lot of young kids. They're wanting to be bigger. They're
Right. But they
wanting
don't want
to.
to put in the work, so they do the drugs. They do the
Well,
steroids.
the thing about that is, and it's more of just a common misconception, and I guess a lot of people I speak to know about it. So it's steroids. All they do is allow you to work harder, really. So that's the
Okay.
thing, that people think that they do it for you, but steroids don't. It doesn't do it for you.
Is it kind of like creatine? The same idea with creatine, it just makes it so you can have more ATP, so you can work harder.
it's partly that, but it's more or less that it increases your ability to recover for a longer period of time. So like a general, like, so say like a natural person, like you or myself, we've got like a kind of 48 hour-ish kind of window where we're going to be ready to train again. So like that's typically why a lot of natural dudes and maybe even you have in your life and still do. And I've gone through periods of some of the best times of training for me have been when I've done like 3 full body workouts a week. Right. Like, and I haven't broken it up, where you'll see a lot of like bodybuilders will break up into like these bro splits where they just train their chest one day, you know, and then one day they train their triceps. And then the next day it's like their hamstrings, and they're able to isolate everything because for longer periods of time after they train, that muscle is recovering over like possibly sometimes up to like a week, which means they can destroy that muscle really intensely. And then they don't need to train it again as quickly as we do, because their body is recovering for quite a while. And there's all different things that come with them, because there's so many different steroids. Some of them give you more motivation, some of them make you feel, and then there's a whole mental health aspect of that. People will come off testosterone and then literally just not even want to go to the gym, right? Because even if their testosterone level comes back to a place of normality, they're so used to it being up here, so their ambition like drops. Like
that would suck. That's probably like how, you know, when you do people who are heroin addicts and then they stop, and then it's like nothing ever gets them to that place anymore. But what I really want to share is there are ways, because I used to do coke and I thought, well, there's going to be nothing that gets me as high as that. But really there is. And I call it the 3 S's: semen retention, superfoods and detox, and sexual kung fu. Kung fu doesn't mean like karate. It means just it means good daily practice. So the good daily practice of cultivating your sexual energy in a good way. That's what kung fu means. Good daily practice. And something else I want to touch on that came up from you speaking is like, some guys will do the leg day, they'll do the biceps, they'll spot each other in the gym, this and that. But in the modern age, the one place in the body that men are missing out on in terms of a regular exercise practice is the cock and the balls. Whereas in ancient China and in Spartan culture, they would work out literally every part of their body, including their penises and testes. And that's what I teach. That's like the missing piece of fitness for modern men is the cock and balls.
Yeah.
And so I teach men there's certain pulling techniques, for example, and in the more advanced practices, there's certain hanging. We call it genital weightlifting or iron crotch qigong, because in the ancient times, the Taoist monk warriors, they had to be super strong in every aspect, including their dicks and balls, so that if invading warriors tried to like knee them in the balls, they would try and like, oh no, I've already been working out that part of my body. I watched a video of this Taoist monk standing on 2 blocks, and then he tied basically a swing set to his penis and balls, and then he had one of the other monks sit in the swing set while he swung his Taoist monk bro between his legs, strengthening his penis and balls.
Wow.
There's a female version too, called the jade egg, where they put a jade egg with a string attached to it and they hang things from their vaginas to strengthen their pussy lips, so it can really hold the penis better when they're having sex, and so that it can really strengthen and tone the pelvic floor to keep the organs in the correct position as they age. So this whole like
Kegels and stuff, right? And
it's kind of like advanced Kegels. And so I wanted to bring that up because so many guys are into working out and fitness, but how many modern guys are into working out their cocks? Not very many. And I think it's very beneficial because nothing feels more juicy than your balls just hanging nice and low, nice and plump, like yours are, I would imagine. But some of us have to work to get, like, my balls used to be like the size of almonds. They're very kind of hugged up towards my body. It's kind of often in a shallow breathing kind of sympathetic nervous system state. And now they more often they hang in a lower way, and the penis is more relaxed and long, and there's more veins on it. It just feels nice to have a nice veiny schlong between your legs. You just feel more grounded and more masculine and sexy. And so we got to work. Some of us have to work out and do cock exercises to catch up with Jacob.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's hard to say, right? Like, I can't say it's a genetic thing or whatever it is, but I just think it's naturally. It's just the natural solutions that are inhibiting. I feel like I've been at those states before, and I've mentioned it as well. Like porn is a big one. I was just watching so much porn growing up, and I definitely
me too.
Stopped doing that. Used to drink a
Good
lot.
For you.
Used to smoke a lot. I was a teenager, like we all were once. Masturbation was a big thing, and now that I don't do a lot of that, I guess I don't put a lot of focus into it, but I also would say that it's naturally it is better because, but it's like one of these things, right? Where dudes sometimes or like people in general are like trying to find like, how do I get healthier doing this? But it always comes back to that same argument, especially when it comes to exercise. Like it's like a lifestyle thing. So like you could sit there and try to find different ways to improve what's going on in like that area, but I'm doing things naturally, not even for that reason, but then I'm getting that result, right? Because obviously that's helping that. And I'm doing all these other things, and maybe the jiu-jitsu is helping, and it's all like adding a percent in what I'm doing, right? And like you said, it's whether you're going down on a woman or whatever, and then these things are adding up. I'm not trying to add them up. It's how I'm living my life. And then if I'm getting that result by what you're saying, where things are healthy in that region of my body, it's just like, I guess, even more evidence of like, if that's what you would like, which I think most men would, then you need to take those things into account, right? Like we spoke about, brought up testosterone, and I had a podcast with Connor, and this is where he talked about his journey, and we brought up testosterone and how low it is now. And we've had discussions before over like the last 50 years. If you isolate that alone, it's really bad. Just how
40% of the testosterone that our grandpas had in the 1940s when they were in their prime, on average.
Right.
40%
and so
less.
So many people are obsessed with, like, obviously people are just fucking injecting it because that's easier, right? And it's not very expensive. But the other thing is in terms of having high testosterone, people are now like, cold plunging and sauna are like a really massive thing, right? Which you obviously do some of. And I want to ask you about that, but people are trying to find all these different ways to do it. There's like test boosters and like people talking about foods you can eat. But it's one of the things we brought up is I was like, 50 years ago, right? It's hard to say that now. I feel so old because 50 years ago was like 1975. When I say 50 years ago, I mean like 1950, which is not 50 years ago.
Longer,
I feel old. But so that they didn't have the same issues, right? The only thing I would say that would be similar that it's hard to make an argument for is one of the biggest problems we have here in Australia. I'm assuming there's an equivalent over in Canada, but people do a lot of night shift here, whether they work shift in town or FIFO. I don't know if you've heard of that before. It's like fly in, fly out here. So we have like one of the biggest mines here. And so there's like a huge lifestyle here. And some people are just totally unaware of this, but there's a huge lifestyle here where you live in the city or the town. And then you have a roster where like you're either be like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 1 week on. Like a big one that people do now is 8 and 6. So like 8 days on, 6 days home. Because
I've got some friends who do that.
Like they
up in mines outside the city.
So a lot of companies did it for like mental health, right? Because people were doing like 4 weeks away, 1 week home, and stuff like that. But they were getting paid ridiculous amounts, right? Like $200,000
it's
a
like
year.
Really good pay.
But the problem with that is you're working for extended periods of time without rest, doing night shift. And then a lot of these guys, right, it's different now because a lot of the mine sites have changed, right? But you're eating crap food that's mass produced because they're treating you like you're in jail, right? They're not going to spend a lot of money on the food that they're feeding you. They're just going to try and make it cheaper per head. Then people have fuck all to do up there. So they're smoking or they're drinking. And so they're doing everything they possibly can to go in the opposite direction of what we're talking about. They get fatter, so their estrogen increases, and then they come home to like their wives who that they don't have a good relationship with. Maybe they're not going down on them. Don't know if that's appropriate to say. I can't assume that about anyone, but I'd imagine if your relationship's not going well, you probably aren't. And
you would, if your estrogen yourself is high, the polarity between you and your missus is going to be less. And so your desire to eat her pussy and ravish her is going to be less. You're going to actually probably start to want to suck cock because your body's needing more testosterone because you're just filled with glyphosate from all the feminizing beer you've been having up at the camp.
Yeah. And then they come home and then do even more, right? Because as soon as you're home, you come home, you've got all this money. And you're like, well, fuck yeah. Like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to eat burgers and I'm going to drink more beers with the boys and I'm going to go do this and do that. And I'm sure there's some level of like health in there, but that's just one example. You've got teenagers that now live on their computers, you know what I mean? In dark rooms, probably, masturbating like all the time, right? And then they're not eating good food, right? They can't be fucked eating. So when they do eat, they're just eating like they're drinking like up and goes. I don't know if you have them over there, but they're just like, people that they're drinking like liquid breakfast and eating cereal.
Oh yeah.
Meat. Or if
and
they
just
do,
on Pornhub.
Yeah. Take
Somebody
away.
said if it's free, then you're the product. Like porn is free. So it's like you're just giving your energy to the internet sex beast, which is a male, by the way.
Yeah. Well, it's
male energy.
That's where I guess for me, I'm like, everyone's looking at these different ways to increase it and all this sort of stuff, but I would be looking to decrease the things that are hindering,
cutting you off, from your true testosterone levels.
Yeah, like that I try to do the same thing now. Like I last 2 nights I haven't been great and I haven't had the best sleep, but then I make effort to be like, I'm going to have a better sleep tonight because I know that, right? Like I try to I'm eating a lot of meat and eggs and whole foods because I know the benefit there. And once again, it's that 1%. I'm missing BJJ because I know what it was adding to me. I feel different. I don't feel as good. I don't feel as like maybe masculine, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
So the cold plunging and things like that you do, that's like the thing at the moment, right? It's on like Andrew Huberman's podcast and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What's your, because there's many reasons why people are doing it, right? People talk about like growth hormone and natural testosterone. Is that the main reason behind it for you?
For me, it goes back again just to how I want to feel. Like I want to feel sexy, juicy, kind of like I'm high all the time. And so cold plunging is one of those ways because it gets you high. It releases those natural feel-good hormones. So every morning I turn my shower cold for at least 30 seconds while I slap my balls and massage them. My teacher says to massage the balls twice your age every morning in the shower. So I do that. And then I do like the Nauli Kriya, the stomach rolling to massage the internal organs, all while I'm having the cold water come down my body. And it just feels it's intense, but it kind of brings me back into that primal state of, I almost feel like I'm transported back to my ancestors' times in northern Scotland when it was super cold and they were probably doing cold plunging stuff too to get ready for battle. Like I went to this island off the coast of Vancouver Island and I was studying the First Nations cultures, and I was reading how they would get naked, all the men, before the whale hunt, and they would hit each other with branches and sing whaling songs in the cold water. So it makes me feel that wild primality that I desire to feel. And that's really the only reason why I do it. I don't care as much about, the science, or some people talk about brown fat and all these things. I think those are great byproducts of the practice. But for me personally, it's really just, wow, it makes me feel super juicy. So I'd do more of it. I love going at least once a week out into nature and doing a cold plunge with my bros, getting naked, just allowing all of our ball sacks to like get trained into a higher vibration. Kind of they've done evolutionary studies on women. Like why do women, when they hang out a lot together, they all end up on the same period cycle? Like they all start to menstruate at the same time.
They live together and stuff. They like sync up.
Yeah. And that's actually, we were talking off air about, viruses and the contentious nature of that. It's like same thing. It's like if all these women end up menstruating on the same cycle, we don't say, oh, it was caused because of a virus, caused them all to like there's some other things that are being transmitted that we don't know about yet. Science hasn't caught up with exactly how or why or what's the mechanism of all these women ending up on the same period cycle. Like it's kind of magical in a way. There is a theory, and that theory is that the alpha male, he was often away from the village or the camp hunting with the other males. And so the alpha female, the one who had the most estrogen in the group of females, she would be kind of like the big pendulum that would dictate the menstruation cycle for all the other females. And so then when the alpha male got back into the camp, say he was out for 3 or 4 months, getting food basically for the camp. He comes back, he needs to like have really high chances of propagating the species. So he goes and he fucks all the women at the same time to improve the chances. And if they're all on the same menstruation cycle, that's going to improve his chances of having viable offspring because there's just simply more fertile women to impregnate. And I think the same thing kind of happens with men. When men gather and they do these types of rituals, the collective testosterone level starts to heighten and the bonding starts to happen. The oxytocin starts to get released. The stress goes down because you feel like you're part of the tribe. So that's kind of, it's a bit of a tangent, but that's kind of what I think.
Well, that's interesting. It's like what I actually have because of what I guess we initially started talking about. Have you ever had your testosterone tested? Have you ever had like your blood stuff?
No,
No.
never had it done. I would like to at some point,
Yeah.
but I kind of just go by how I feel. Like
Yeah.
before I was really tired and I didn't want to do much with my life and I was kind of having to lie in bed a lot. And now I can like run a 50-kilometer race with a lot more ease than I ever thought was like, it just kind of the proof in the pudding in terms of how I feel and my daily life and the energy that I feel. But I would like to sometime do kind of like a before and after, and I don't know, maybe get my levels checked and then do some of my my techniques with the bros, and then see if we can do little mini studies. I would find that interesting for sure.
Yeah, that's where I'm curious with it as well. And then obviously it's like, you have symptoms when you have low testosterone. That's the other thing to remember. So I got mine tested, and it's like I had a couple of people look at it and read out whatever, and it was like essentially just like my total test was really high, and it was like not top end range, but like just underneath it, and then like my free testosterone was like just slightly above average, but it could be like a little bit better as well. And so then there's people like talk about it, but once again, that number can be anything when it comes down to how you feel, because I use it in the same way when people talk about weight, right? It's like people can be obsessed with weighing themselves. And if I have a client who's trying to lose weight and we're tracking their weight, I'm tracking their weight for like data, right? Like I need it. I need that data so that I can do things on my end, so that I can make sure that we're losing weight and blah, blah, blah. And but the overall number doesn't matter, because someone will say to me like, oh, I just really want to get to 80 kilos. And I'm like, the thing is, unless you know specifically what 80 kilos looks like, let's say you were 80 kilos, gained 5 kilos, and want to be back at 80 kilos with the exact same body composition because you liked how it looked and felt. That's pretty rare. Most people will just gain weight uncontrollably and then they want to lose like 40 kilos, but they have a number in their head. And I'm like,
Yeah,
the thing about it is you won't give a shit what the scale says if you feel and look good. You're doing this because you want to feel and look better. That scale could say a horrible number. It could say 120 kilos. But if you liked the way you felt and looked, you just wouldn't care, right? You would.
exactly.
So same with the testosterone. You can get it tested, and I'll be very curious if you do, just out of interest because of the methods that you do. But it could come back average, and you'll still be like, well, they can say that, but I feel great.
Exactly.
So
kind of subjective.
It's like, look, we know tests and stuff are all a weird one anyway, especially bloods. Like I got bloods done, and it's all sometimes it's like all different kinds of stuff, and it's really hard to work.
And couldn't it change like depending on the time of day you do it? Or I'm sure there's other factors that could kind of skew it, maybe?
You'd have to be watching porn and kind of like, and hopefully the doctor would be okay with you just kind of stroking
exactly, stroking your meat as he's testing you.
Yeah, but you'd have to almost stop just as he takes the blood or something and just see how.
Exactly.
It's intriguing to like how much that would affect it.
Totally.
But I want to go through this list because we've done what we did last time, and we've spoken for a long time. Oh, the song's playing. We've spoken for a very long. One of your songs, actually. I don't. Oh. So it doesn't want to stop. I don't know why it's not. My phone's playing up. There we go. I'm just gonna. It's actually one of Will's songs. It's called Mul Mantra.
Oh yeah, Mul Mantra means like root mantra.
There you go. If you like, that's one thing I haven't mentioned so far. Check out Will Blunderfield music. Will has a lot of music. You have a lot of music.
Yeah, I do, and I've got a Christmas song out right now. Oh Holy Night. I did a cover of that classic Christmas carol. You could check it out.
Yeah,
on any streaming platform. Just type in Will Blunderfield, Oh Holy Night.
I had to chuck it on
some high notes.
Yeah, you do. I had to chuck it on the thing as soon as I saw it, because I was very rare that I collab with someone, because obviously last time we were having issues, right? You couldn't collab on your Instagram, so we finally could.
Yeah, I was super shadow banned.
Yeah.
Now I've got the blue check mark and I didn't even pay for it. Now their Instagram's being, knock on wood, they're being a lot nicer to me since I got the blue check mark.
You didn't pay for it?
No, I submitted news. There were two back in the day, up until I think a few months ago, you could only get a blue check mark if you were like a celebrity, and you had to submit newspaper articles about your work to show that there was enough people trying to impersonate you that you needed to have a blue check mark.
Okay.
And then they changed it, and now like you can just pay for it. So everybody's like, "Oh my God, you sold out. You're paying Meta." I'm like, "No, I haven't given a cent to Meta. I had to submit all these news articles, like the BBC thing, the Channel 5 documentary, Vancouver Sun article, something in Esquire magazine that they did on me. I had to submit all this stuff, and then they gave me a blue check mark because of that." So anyway, now that I've got this blue check mark, they seem to be kind of off my case a little bit, which is great. So now I can accept collaborations.
No, that's good, because it's a
Yeah.
good way for us to both reach people, but it can be annoying when it doesn't let you. I was like, why is it doing this?
Yeah. So now it was super easy. And what was I going to say about? I don't know. Keep talking, and it might come
So
back to me.
the reason I was saying it is because I liked that I could attach your
Oh yes.
song to it.
Yes. Oh, and I was going to say, some girl, this girl who I collaborated with like 10 years ago, she asked me, she's like, "Oh, I love your cover of Oh Holy Night. Like, it sounds so professional. Like, could you please share like where you recorded it, and who did you record it with, and all this stuff?" And the truth is, I recorded that in my friend's closet. Like, he's my producer, but we decided to just record it at his new apartment, like in a high rise. And he had the whole setup, but then like a few hours before I was going to go record it, he sent me a text message. He's like, "Oh, just so you know, there's been a sewage explosion. And the whole place, there's like shit everywhere, and the whole place smells like poo. And we have like construction workers coming in to try to like stop the poo from flowing everywhere." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is going to be a gong show." And I was already like in the car driving over. So I drove over, and there's like poo everywhere. It stinks. There's holes in the wall. They're trying to find the source of the sewage explosion. It's like a brand new building, but for some reason, like I think they found out a few weeks later, finally, after making all these holes in the wall, that the person above the toilet broke, or like one of the pipes broke. So there was all this poo going into, like sewage poo going into my producer's suite. So anyway, that's how I recorded Oh Holy Night. It was hell. I was singing Oh Holy Night in a closet with poo all around me, while there were Mexican construction workers cutting huge holes in the wall trying to find the source of the poo stain leak. So it's my poo Christmas. I should do Mr. Hanky. "Mr. Hanky, the Christmas poo, small and brown, he comes from you. Say hi-de ho ho, yum yum yum, Christmas time has come. Sometimes he's nutty, sometimes he's brown, sometimes he's practically water. Sometimes he'll hang to the edge of your ass, and he won't go into the toilet because he's clinging to your sphincter. So you shake, shake, shake your ass, and finally it does. Mr. Hanky, the Christmas poo." Anyway.
That was very
on and on I could go. Thank you.
I love the impression. It's the commitment that sells it.
Thank you.
So I'm doing this because I don't want to like speed round this. There's so much in here. It's gonna get
Let's do it.
But so for those listening, Will had put up a post. I won't read the caption because I want you to just go to Will's page. If you're listening to this, chances are you have me on Instagram, and then you can easily find Will's page because we have collaborated now. Go to Will's page
at not Will Blunderfield. That's
not Will Blunderfield. It's very important.
Yeah, it's my 10th account.
And it's funnily enough, and it's funny that you've now brought up that you've been accepted as Will Blunderfield using an account that says not Will Blunderfield. That's even funnier.
I know, right? The one time, because I've applied before, and this is the time I put not Will Blunderfield. Now they've accepted me as Will Blunderfield.
Oh, there you go. So now if you do something controversial, they're like, "Oh, that's okay. It's not."
Yeah, it's not actually him. Yeah.
So it says, "To me, a physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually healthy man." And then it has a list, right? And it essentially obviously does these things. And I found this really interesting because I do a lot of this stuff. But I also believe it kind of comes back to what we were talking about before, and about if you want to produce a good amount of testosterone, if you want to be healthy, if you want to have a good emotional connection with yourself and other people. And the list really just goes on in terms of being like the best human that you can be. I believe in being the best human. I think human's not a word that we use enough because That's what
Yeah.
we are, and I strive to kind of be the best one that I can. There's definitely a lot of there's a huge checklist as humans. Some of us create larger ones than others, but I like this one and I agreed with it for pretty much the entire thing. So I kind of want to go through it. The first one is a controversial
Yeah.
one, as we talked about, because I work at a vape shop, but it says doesn't vape, and so as I get you to elaborate on things and we talk about it, obviously because there is so much here, I'll get you to just obviously like summarize like on why it doesn't vape, especially it's at the top, so it obviously was on your mind.
Totally.
Yeah, why do you think that?
I'm just like a purist. Like I like natural things. And for me, the vaping, it's just so I can smell it when somebody vapes past me and on the street, I can smell it. And it's just synthetic-y crap. It's just like, I'm like, if you want to get a dose of nicotine, I would recommend ceremonially, ritualistically, go get some organic tobacco, roll it yourself with some nice, good papers, and like set your intention. Like I just believe in it. And I just see all these people just vaping nonchalantly with no sort of intentionality. And as we were talking about off air, a lot of vapes, people don't even know what the ingredients are. They're made in China or some developing country, and who knows what they're putting in to the vapes. So for me, it's for most people who vape, it's a very unconscious behavior that I think you could just get a better choice. Just get some organic tobacco. That's why it just feels very synthetic-y, and it's so common. Everybody's fucking vaping downtown Vancouver. So I was like, no, don't vape. I mean, vape if you want, but like make a higher quality, higher caliber vaping choice, like what you're doing. You at least you know the ingredients of what you're putting in your body, and it's actually made in Australia.
Yeah, I mean that, as well as like even just someone brought this up when they came into the shop the other day, and he just said like, it'd be totally interesting for like a company to like look into like, obviously we both believe in like taking like certain supplements, right? So it's like it'd be cool if they could find a way to even like work supplements into a form of vaping, right? It's like you're essentially inhaling something. Is there not a way that a company could try and find a way to be inhaling?
Yeah, get some vitamins or some kind of like mood elevating natural thing like dope, like a L-Dopa, like from the Mucuna pruriens plant or something.
Yeah, I'm sure there could be something that they could invent. And I'm sure, like, look, with the way things go in our society, I'm sure there'll be something developed in the future.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, already, right, even people use vapes for, like, THC when they use treatment for, if they have chronic pain, or some people use it for cancer treatment. So,
oh, yeah.
Speaking
something like that where there's, like, actual benefits,
Yeah, you're not just sucking on it and because it tastes nice.
Sucking on a fake synthetic cherry made in China that probably has lead in it or something, I don't know.
Yeah, well, it probably does, right? You've got no idea what it is, and you've not even asked. Most people don't ask; they just care about the flavor.
Yeah, people don't care. Yeah, so that's that.
Well, that heads into doesn't smoke weed is the next one. So we've obviously just mentioned THC, and you understand there's levels of treatment for it, but you've written doesn't smoke weed there.
Yes. So I have found that, well, personally, this is all just stuff that didn't work for me. When I tried smoking weed, it was this weird pattern where I would get an anxiety attack and I'd feel good for like 3 seconds. And then I'd go into this crazy panic place, and I would just keep doing it to myself week after week, to the point where like I was buying weed from like one of my hot yoga teacher friends who sold it. And I knew it makes me feel anxious, yet I kept doing it. It was like self-sabotage. So I just have had really bad experiences. So that kind of has tainted my opinion on this. I do know people like Joe Rogan, they seem to be fine on weed. Like a lot of people really thrive on it. But in terms of my social sphere, the people I know who do weed, they tend to be not as motivated. They tend to kind of use it as a crutch, and I wonder like how helpful is it? But more than anything, it's because it fucked me up. Like I was not in a good way when I was doing weed, and weird shit would happen. Like I would do weed and then I'd go for a walk and I'd be like, oh fuck, those 2 cars are going to crash. And then they would crash like right in front of me. Or I'd be like doing naked yoga in my apartment, and I'd be like doing the weed, and then I'd be like, oh my gosh, there's this man masturbating watching me doing naked yoga. And then I'd look up and I could see, like, in this huge high rise, my eyes would focus in on this one guy who just happened to be masturbating watching me. It was all these weird, it almost made me like too perceptive to the point where I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And it was very scary. So that for me, it's like the ideal man. Like, I don't know. I'm just thinking of somebody like who I would want to date. I don't know if it's just it's a selfish thing. I know that some people can really thrive on cannabis and that it can be used medicinally and that it can be used intentionally. But my question is, how many people are actually using it medicinally and intentionally? Because most people I know who are using it are abusing it, and it's not super intentional. And that's that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I smoked for like 10 years, and then sometimes went through periods of doing too much. It used to just make me eat junk food, and
Oh yeah, I would eat the whole fridge. That's another issue. I was so bloated and puffy because I would get so hungry on it. I would end up eating the whole fridge.
And then it can cause even more problems. It's funny that you actually go the opposite direction and people develop this like weird stomach problem. There's like a full name for it, where people, if they smoke weed too frequently, it starts to cause the opposite problem, and they end up having like severe digestive issues, and they actually can't eat, and then they don't get hungry at all when they smoke weed. And then they smoke weed. It's because they smoke weed so frequently. So then, like, I know people that weirdly smoke so much that they're like nothing, like all their clothes are loose and they're skinny as fuck because they just
oh my god. So it goes the opposite end of the pendulum.
Yeah.
Did you ever get the anxiety thing or the weird synchronicity thing?
Yeah, so that's the perception thing was a big thing for me. I didn't like being in shopping centers or anything like that. I struggled to go out when I was high. And then about a year ago, similar to, and it had a little bit to do with, which is why I guess I'm looking more into it, but a little bit with what we were talking about before with like what's happening with me at the moment. I had like a severe panic attack. One night I smoked some, and then I ended up in the shower for like half an hour, and my heart just like wouldn't go down. And I was like, I don't feel good. Like something's wrong. Went to the hospital. Yeah. Obviously, they just pretty much were like, yeah, like we think you're having like a really bad panic attack. Once I told them that I'd smoked weed, it was almost like they were like, oh, okay, yeah, like we've seen this. And weirdly enough, like I said, I did it for 10 years, had no problems. Had that one experience. That was it. Literally just gave everything I had away. Haven't smoked it since. Not interested in doing it again. So, yeah.
In Kundalini, that's good to know that you had that similar experience, that anxiety weird thing. In Kundalini yoga, we were taught that every plant has a vibration or a consciousness or a frequency, and that most people vibrate far higher than the frequency of the cannabis plant itself. So when most people do cannabis, this is just the Kundalini yoga perspective. I don't know if it's true or not. They say it's actually bringing your vibration down to meet the plant's vibration, when in reality, your core vibration, your core frequency is actually higher than the plant. So it's kind of like you're pulling a cork underneath the water instead of just letting your cork naturally bob in a really high flying vibration. You're kind of like pinching yourself off from your true nature. Now that's just one perspective. For me, that's what it felt like. It definitely felt like I thought, oh wow, I'm so smart on cannabis. And I was like making all these cool journal entries and stuff, but then like getting really anxious or maybe, I don't know, maybe that's not true. And maybe the plant's vibration is super high and I just couldn't hold the frequency. I have no idea. All I know is it felt fucking horrible over time. And like you, I had to stop. And, I do, as we shared off air, I do like kratom. That plant seems to really help me at this time of my life. It's helping me stay sober from alcohol and cocaine. But for some people, like my brother has tried it. He doesn't feel anything. Other people, they do 1 teaspoon and they vomit all over the place. If you type in kratom on Google, of course, Big Pharma doesn't want you knowing about it. So there's all this propaganda saying that it kills people. But if you actually read the case reports of people who quote unquote died from kratom or kratom, as they say in the States, they actually had crystal meth and Percocet and all these other things in their bloodstream. And of course, the Matrix is going to blame it on the plant, right? There's a demonization because they can't make money off of it. Kind of like cannabis, even the words weed, marijuana, all these kind of like more low frequency spell casting words. The government has demonized it for ages. In many places in the world, it's still illegal. But now that the government in Canada can make money off of it, now there's a quote unquote weed store on every street corner, sometimes more than Starbucks. There's just like weed stores everywhere now. It's crazy.
It is crazy. Hey, that's everywhere. Did you see the South Park episode where like weed becomes legal and then KFC becomes illegal, and like Randy puts his
I'm gonna have to watch that because I'm a big South Park fan. I'll have to watch that one.
Yeah, I remember you saying it. So I was thinking that Randy puts his nuts in the microwave, and then you will like it. His nuts go massive because they get like radiation in them, and then he uses them as like, you know, those things that children's. I don't know if you. I'm assuming they had them in America or Canada. They, you know, those things that kids sit on, and it has the handle, and they like bounce. Like
Yeah.
he like turns like he does that to his balls, and that's how he starts like getting around. And he, you know, it's a really silly episode, but it's quite funny.
Oh my God, I have to watch it.
Yeah, you'll like it. The next one is, and we've talked about this before as well, is just like doesn't get vaxxed. Now, I feel like this is summarized for me, and I'll still obviously let you say something, but for me, it's more or less, and knowing that we talked about it, it's just that's more of an ideal, right? It's obviously it's just like it's not saying that if someone's vaccinated, then that they can never be a healthy person. It's just the idea that
exactly.
Yeah, we didn't. If obviously your personal belief is that we didn't necessarily need them, so obviously to you it would make sense that someone that doesn't have them would be healthier.
Yes, and again, it's kind of a selfish. This is just a list of like my ideal man, basically. Like, I would love to attract a man who already knew that he didn't need it.
Yeah.
Because that has been a point of contention for me with partners in the past, is they're really invested in allopathy. And because I have a different take on things, it's one of my friends said, try not to date people who go really, really, really against your grain. Try to find somebody who goes with your grain. So for me, if somebody got vaccinated, chances are there's going to be friction in many different aspects of that potential relationship. So I'm just looking for ease and flow in my life. So it's all very selfish. I've met people who got vaccinated and they're like, oh, I had to get it for work, but I realized a lot of the quote unquote science behind it is not settled. Just like how they used to spray kids with DDT in the 60s. And then a lot of them ended up with what we would call polio symptoms, spinal issues and central nervous system problems. From spraying kids with pesticides. And at the time that was settled science. It's like, that's what we're going to do to prevent them from getting lice and what have you. We're just going to spray the hell out of these elementary school kids. So if somebody like got the vaccine and then they're like, wait a sec, like I realized that there's other perspectives on this. Like I'm open to doing some of my own research. Then I think that's amazing in terms of again, it's very selfish, a partner for me. I'm looking for a dude who is like bisexual, who's into eating pussy so we can have nice big balls together, who's unvaccinated or who at least is not going to get any more vaccines, who's open to my quote unquote crazy views in terms of like German new medicine and the idea that no illness can happen in the body without the involvement of the psyche and the brain, who's willing to go onto the Pfizer website and scroll down and see in the small print that it does say now myocarditis is a side effect of the Pfizer vaccine, and that, if you experience symptoms, you should get it checked out, and that it can happen in young men. Like just somebody who's open to that, not in a dogmatic way, but who's willing to do a bit of their own research, who's willing to, if I say, hey, do you realize Pfizer is what is called a habitually criminal company? Instead of them getting triggered, being like, oh, tell me more. Kind of like you. Maybe you could be my boyfriend. You got big balls. You got an open heart. You're a nice guy. You got big biceps. You just kind of throw me around. And anyway, no, I'm just kidding.
Maybe in the next life, because unfortunately, I'm just way too into the pussy thing, as we spoke about. But
that's the thing. Yeah. And also, I will say, I thought I was looking for, sex with a man when I was on Grindr and stuff for all those years. And then I realized at the most deepest level, I was looking for a sense of platonic comfort. And it just so happens for me that platonic comfort is invoked through naked bro bonding. So yeah, anyway, I would be happy to just do a cold plunge with you with swimming trunks on. That would be enough. But yeah, there we go. So yeah, the whole thing about the vaccine is more of a, is the dude open to doing his own research and coming to his own conclusions? And if you do your own research and you've researched Pfizer's criminal history and you've realized that they have paid the largest civil criminal fine in history, if you do your own research and you're aware, I think it's just, I like somebody who's aware, and if they're willing to do the research to come to their own conclusions, I just think that's so sexy in a man.
Yeah, I can see why that would be important. And I feel the same way about a partner or even friends, right? Even friends. You just want to be, I've been friends with people in school who then, when we've got older, and I've been different, right? I stopped smoking weed and I stopped, like, so all
Yeah.
of a sudden I just found that I just couldn't even have a conversation with them. And that became important to me. It wasn't even necessarily that we needed the same views, but I currently have one or
Yeah.
two friends, one specifically that I can think of. And we had a discussion about it the other day. And I was like, the fact that we can sit here and disagree on something and have an intelligent conversation. And he kind of joked and was like, "Oh, I don't think we're overly intelligent." I said, "Well, that's the thing, though." I said, we are compared to a lot of people now. A lot of people can't even have a conversation. Some people can't even have a conversation coherently where they agree on something, let alone do it when they disagree on something and still be able to
Totally.
be like healthy enough to feel like they enjoyed that. I can
Exactly.
completely disagree with someone and enjoy their company.
Yes. Yeah,
So
no, amen to that. One of my mentors calls it trading positions for interests, or trading positions, like argumentative positionalities for common ground. Trying to find the common ground with somebody, like I don't really, at the first, I didn't really talk about these sort of hot button issues with my family, for example, because they're all really into the allopathic system. But then I found a common ground with like Jordan Peterson. We all like Jordan Peterson in some, not all of us, some people in my family like Jordan Peterson. And I don't like everything about him, but we found common ground on that. And then we worked our way up. We went for the low hanging fruit and then we worked our way up, now to the point where we realize we actually have so many similar beliefs about so many things. And trading positions for interests has been a really powerful technique or way of approaching my family that's been really fruitful for me and for anybody, and that goes for the whole vaccine thing. If somebody is willing to have, like, as you just said, sort of a calm nervous system and have like a healthy conversation about a hot button topic, I think that's really sexy. That's rare in this world, as you said.
yeah, I think it showed, and it's like definitely a really important level of maturity as you get older as well, to be able to do that, because people could be
Yes.
triggered by all kinds of things, right? There was no doubt, right? There's going to be someone who listens to this, and even the boyfriend comment that you made, right, could just, oh, why, like that was super, like, full on or whatever. Like, dudes can't handle it. And once again, like, it's that same sort of thing. I can literally have anyone say
It was a
anything.
joke.
Well, it was a joke, but
there is truth in every joke. Like, you are a good looking guy, and I'm sure your balls are very well developed, which I think is amazing.
I appreciate that, and that is a very nice compliment. Thank you very much. And
Cheers.
your beard is a very, very nice beard, so I'm going to pay you that
Thank you
compliment
so
back. I'm
much.
sure that people find it very attractive. I cannot grow one,
Thank
and
you.
I need to currently trim whatever the hell's happening here, but I'm just leaving it right now.
Nice.
But you understand that people can get triggered by those things, right? Even if it is a joke,
Yes.
or even if it's not. Regardless, it's like, it's so funny how much people can take on with what someone said, and I think that's why I've always been such a big fan of, like, even like stand-up comedy and like comics like George
Yes.
Carlin and stuff like that,
I
because
like
it's
him.
just
Yeah.
like someone can say something, and I believe that I've just gone through so much time working on developing my emotions as a human, not just a man, as a human, that I can control them. I don't get massively triggered. If someone says something that's like obviously extremely offensive or something like that, it can still hurt me in the way I feel, but I can have large debates with someone and come out of them feeling actually like the opposite of maybe what someone would feel in an argument with someone. An argument that's unhealthy, where neither of you are dealing with anything healthy and it's the same problem or whatever, you don't feel good after those, especially when, say, it's with your partner or a family member, right?
Right.
But you can come out of healthy discussion with someone having completely disagreed, and you actually feel better. And I think that's where a lot of people, like you said, like, and the reason I used your comment as an example, that would just like, people can't process information like that, and it's because they're so like emotionally immature. They can't, like you said, it's like if that person's like straight, and then maybe they have views. I think the fact that people have views on people that are gay, just weird anyway, because I just don't care. I've never cared. So
Yeah.
like,
I remember in grade 8 walking home, and this guy who lived near me, he's like, "Oh, I just want you to know, my dad told me last night that he thinks you're going to grow up to be gay." And it's like, why does your dad care about a grade 8's sexual orientation? That's weird. Anyway,
yeah,
so people really seem to care about like somebody's same-sex orientation. It's like, focus on your own life, bro. You know, it's like,
It's super weird
so strange.
yeah, it is. But the thing about it is like jokes and stuff are different. Like it's funny, right? Because like for growing up, especially like so Australian, right? You like the accent, right? So a big thing here, for whatever reason, is my older brothers or it used to be a thing where that people would be like, oh, fuck off with that, you bloody poofter. That was like a thing that like an Australian would say, and it would be, we would use poofter or fag or something as like an offensive thing, right? You know what I mean? We'd use it as derogatory term, and I think they probably did that all over the world. But I obviously grew up doing it, and I'll still do it now as a joke with people, with my friends who I know that are obviously are okay with doing it.
I love the word faggot. Am I allowed to say that on this podcast? It's such a great word.
I think if you weren't allowed to say that, then we're going to have to censor the rest of it.
Everything too. No, I'm like, because I don't like being called gay, but if you're going to call me something, like I like no labels, but if you're going to label me, call me a faggot. Because that's like, black people, some black people will reappropriate the N word. Yeah. I like to reappropriate the faggot word because it's such a strong word that was shouted at me so much. Like at one time, this black guy took out a switchblade when I was holding hands for the first time ever, holding hands with another dude in public. This black guy took out a switchblade and he's like, "You fucking faggots, I'm going to kill you." And like, he was chasing us up the street. We let go of our hands, obviously, and we like were able to escape, but it was really scary. And so I really I love calling myself a faggot because I've been called that so much in a negative way. It's kind of like reappropriating the word and owning it,
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too. I feel like that I know a lot of gay people, and like most of them don't care about the word faggot. Most of them just find it like funny, and they use it with each other anyway. To be honest, I think it's just a word now that like if it's definitely got like a different way of looking at it, sort of thing. And like you said, it's how you choose to process things, and that's where I said I'm that way with a lot of stuff, right? Like I just choose not to become super offended by things, and I just choose to be able to like. I don't know, I just like different views. And it was one of the biggest things about talking to you. And I've spoken to one or two people in the past, very similar. And I'm just like, I like that. Like, I'm just hearing, so I don't know, it's like, it's good to finally hear something different, right? It's good to finally hear someone that has a different outlook on things and has their own way on things. And like I said, your passion is a huge driver about that, right? Because that's why people are so, well, that's definitely a part of why people are so confronted about the way you are and what you say, because of the passion behind it. It's like, it's intense for people, right? Because they don't really hear people. I really believe that's a big part of it. I believe that a lot of people are really low now. They have real low energy. And in my industry, it's hard because for me, I get worried about being too much. Everyone's like, all these successful coaches are like button up shirt and they're all like, we're going to talk about the quadricep muscle today. You know what I mean? And then like they're the person that's taken seriously. And I'm like, should I do that? Well, maybe I shouldn't care about that. I should have more personality. That seems kind of rigid and like robotic and boring. So I think it's like you're kind of like, that's what your like personality represents to me, is like, like freedom of like personality and like I said, it kind of, if I was to use an example of passion of belief, you know what I mean? You believe things, but you don't just believe them. A lot of people believe things, like you said before, without even questioning them. Religion's a massive one. People believe it, and some of them don't even completely understand it. You believe things, but you're so passionate about them that you can explain every part of your belief. You could teach other people about your belief that then could possibly then they believe it. And that's like on a level that not a lot of people can be at. You know what I mean? It's very difficult to have that level of passion in what you believe, that not only are you living it and other people are then also encouraged to live it, but there's no like sense of doubt because you're at such a high level of the way you feel about it. I wish I had more words to describe it.
I think I know it. Well, thank you. I take that as a compliment. And you know what it is? It's because finally I've given myself permission to focus on what actually lights me up. There's that quote, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and then go and do that, because what the world needs right now are more people who have come alive. And so when I was teaching 20 fitness classes a week, like, you know, running myself into the ground, driving around like a crazy person, sitting in traffic, teaching 5 spin classes every day, plus a hot yoga class. Like, I was just so tired all the time. And I thought I had to do that to make ends meet. But then when the world shut down, I was able to take some of what I was doing, which was the naked men's yoga and the sexual kung fu. I was actually teaching it mostly to Brazilian jiu-jitsu dudes. Like, I'd be wrestling with them and they'd be like, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And I'm like, "Oh, I teach dudes how to masturbate." And they'd be like, "What the fuck?" And like, I remember one guy, he kind of like got so triggered, he like dropped onto the floor and almost had a panic attack. And then he got up and he's like, "Could I come?" And I was like, "Sure, of course you can come. Yeah, but don't come," because we teach guys not to come, but you come. So a lot of the Brazilian jiu-jitsu and the cold plunge dudes would actually come and get naked, and we would massage our cocks together in a room. It was a really beautiful experience. So anyway, that's what lit me up the most, more so than the teaching the spin or the hot yoga, was the cock training. And so when I gave myself permission to really just do what lights me up, then I became more passionate and also radicalized from within and from without, because I became radical because I'm just doing what I really want to do now for the first time in my life. Plus, I was ostracized more. And my personality is, if I get ostracized more for being myself, then I do the things that light me up even more. I'm like, fuck you. You know, like, for example, I didn't feel comfortable getting the vaccine, even though my family's like, "Wouldn't you just suck it up and get it so you can keep your jobs?" Teaching at the country clubs, teaching the yoga to the ladies. And I just was like, no, like, it doesn't feel right. Like, I just Googled Pfizer criminal history and I was like, they've paid how can anybody trust these people? My dad is a psychiatrist and I was 8. Like, I've got more experience with Pfizer than most people because I have a father who's a psychiatrist, and he's a very good psychiatrist, and he focuses mostly on talk therapy. He's a good listener. But I remember back in the day, Pfizer would wine and dine us as a family, right? Because it's all predatory capitalism. They send these really buxom, beautiful drug reps, you know, to give donuts to the psychiatrists and take them to fancy restaurants. They flew us out to Painter's Lodge, a 5-star fishing resort, for a Pfizer convention. And I snuck into the ballroom and I watched the underbelly of Pfizer. They spend much of their money on marketing. They got all the psychiatrists to chime in to decide which depressed looking woman would sell the most antidepressants in the medical journal. They were like, they had all these depressed looking women on all these easels at the front of the presentation hall. And they're like, and I just remember all these like middle-aged white psychiatrists being like, "I think that girl in the middle, that she looks really depressed, but very beautiful. Yeah, I think she'll sell the most antidepressants." And I just remember being 8 years old, standing at the back of this ballroom being like, "Oh, this feels really off. Something's a bit scary here. Like, why are they spending so much time deciding on marketing? Like, I thought this was a drug convention where they're going to learn about the benefits and stuff." And I'm sure they did, but it was a huge aspect, was like getting the psychiatrist to chime in on which depressed looking image would sell the most drugs. And I was like, that's fucked up.
Yeah, it's similar to, there's like a documentary on, I think I've turned it into a mini series on Netflix. Did you see it? Painkiller?
I haven't seen it yet.
It's like about, they did the same, it's like about the same thing that doctors did with like Oxycontin.
Okay.
And it was like the same thing. They would like get all, but they would use women, right? So would get like these like really hot women, like big, you know, big boobs and everything, like dress them all up, everything like that. And they would like get them to go in and, you know, kind of like flirt with the doctors and be like, "Hey, so like when people are in pain, try this, give them this." And then it like allowed them to get it all around the country. And then people were getting like massively addicted to it and like spending all their money because they had like back pain from work or something. And that's what they do in the show. They follow like a guy who like hurted himself, then he needs it so bad, then can't afford it, and then he like loses his family in the process because he becomes like a full-blown addict, and he's like buying it off the black market, and it's like really horrible. And it shows you
right
in it as well, which it has Matthew Broderick in it, if you remember.
I like him.
Yeah,
he's in The Producers, and in what's that classic one, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
He is. I don't want to put a dull on it, but I have to just totally mention, because this blows my mind, because I never knew about it. But I don't know if anyone else knows about Matthew Broderick. Did you know about that thing that happened like a couple of years ago, the car crash he was in?
No.
If you look it up on Google, it comes up like immediately, and I don't know the exact details, but it blew my mind. But he was actually, he's got a disease now, I think. I think he may have like MS or Parkinson's or something, which isn't very nice. But probably about I don't know, it might have even been like 10 years ago. He was in Europe, maybe somewhere, and he was driving a car and he head on collided with another car with a woman and her daughter in it. And they both died, killed both of
Oh
them.
no.
And then, yeah, like I don't think he did. I'm not sure there was any, not even that it was his fault or something, but I think maybe there might have been something in there about it, about maybe him.
And this is Matthew Broderick and not what's that Vancouver actor who has Parkinson's, who was in Back to the Future?
No, not Michael J. Fox. No.
Not Michael J. Fox. Okay.
No, Michael J.
Okay.
Fox would never do that. I
don't think he would, right?
So disappointed if it was Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, I don't think it would be.
Seems like a nice guy as well. But Back to the Future is my favorite movie, so I would be so upset.
Oh, okay, so yeah.
I would be devastated.
Yeah, but like back to the whole radicalization and sort of how you see me as somebody who's passionate about what I believe. Me getting fired for basically not wanting to disclose a private medical choice, that was really upsetting. Like I thought, wow. And like a lot of people in the spiritual community, they would host dance events called circles of inclusion, but only vaccinated people were allowed. And I thought, well, that's not very inclusive. No. And I understand that people were scared, but at the same time, I was doing my best to provide information that I have been studying for 10 years about virology to help alleviate people's fear. And people it was really sad, the sort of divisiveness that this caused, and how like if you wanted to go to a restaurant, you had to show your vaccine card. Meanwhile, there's like morbidly obese people smoking outside the restaurant. They're allowed to go in. It's like, where's my health card? Like I'm spending all this money on supplements. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I do my best to get out of bed on time. Like where I should get like a health card, like it just seems so hypocritical. Especially as we were saying off air, the CDC said the two biggest risk factors for dying of COVID were obesity and fear/panic related disorders. Yet these super heavy set people were allowed to just keep eating their spare ribs and going to the restaurants, whereas me who's not overweight, like I didn't get to go and have dinner with my friends.
It made things really awkward. I just found it annoying because I had to have like the app on my phone and I had to like fill it out every time I went to a fucking shopping center or something. But we won't get caught up in that. We talked about this already. But I hear what you're saying, and it's like that's the thing. That's the good thing about podcasts.
And even the CD said, if you do believe in contagion and things spreading, people who are obese spread it more. That's what even the CDC's data said, because their fat cells hold the COVID. If you want to believe in all that, there's a reason to want to lose weight,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you should just want to lose weight anyway. That's not necessarily listed here, but your next one doesn't release his seed to porn, which I feel like we probably don't need to cover too much. We talked about it a little bit. If anybody knows you, they know the semen retention thing. Overall, which it's been sort of covered in probably last time we spoke, and we've definitely spoken about it in this one a little bit, because obviously it's just overall not healthy for the brain to watch a lot of pornography and to ejaculate to it often. I imagine if you did it once a month, you'd probably be fine, but no one does it once a month. So
yeah. And there's something I call porn yoga, where I invite my clients who are addicted to porn. I say, well, don't just go cold turkey, keep watching it, but put the screen up higher, stand and have one hand on your cock and one hand, caressing your body, and kind of dance a bit and send gratitude to the actors and to yourself, and make it like porn yoga, make it more kind of dancey and involved, rather than and make sure you're breathing deeply, you're standing up. It's more of an active worshiping process of eroticism, rather than shamefully beating your meat and shooting all over your computer. And I try to get them to actually use it to train themselves to get addicted to non-ejaculatory life-giving orgasms, rather than just what most guys use porn for, is they're just constantly shooting it out. And then they wonder why they're tired all the time. Well, it's like you just shot out all your life force and you do it like 6 times a day. Of course you're going to be tired. It's just physics.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not trying to rush through these, but I really want to cover it.
No. Yeah. Let's do it.
Lift weights weekly. That's something I do. I think a lot of people do as well. What, do you lift a lot of weights or?
Well, I'm trying to. So ever since kind of July, when I was maybe a little bit before, but I just got, all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I need to do a bit of weightlifting. So there's a gym on the first floor of my building, And so I do my best to go in a few times a week. The last couple of weeks I've been slacking, so I need to get on it. You've inspired me to get back into the gym. But yeah, ever since like June up until 2 weeks ago, I was going like 3 times a week and just lifting weights, not the heaviest weights in the world, but just lifting weights. And I was like, oh, this feels really good. And I close my eyes, have a bit of creatine before I go down there, and I just breathe, and it really just feels like a yoga. It feels like a moving meditation.
Yeah,
I
well,
love it.
it's another form of stretching, right? Resistance training, which a lot of people don't think and realize. I think it makes your body tight and bad, and then you need to stretch it all out. But it definitely depends on how you train. But I don't train like I'm not trying to shorten my ranges of motion. I'm trying to increase them, and I like to. There's definitely a lot of training stuff that, as you know, there's a lot of stuff you can teach me. I'm sure there's some things that I can help you with as well in terms of just recommendations, because in terms, like, I know how you like your body to be and how you like to feel, and so a lot of people training in terms of
I'd love to learn
full,
more from you.
Full range of motion and keeping yourself strong in areas and stuff like that. It's definitely not all about lifting as heavy as you can, for sure. Prioritize sleep is the next one you put, and I think this works in really well with the weightlifting side of things. Sleep's one of those things. Hey, it's like people are so willing to give up their sleep. It's insane. It's crazy how much people are like, I slept for 5 hours last night just because I was watching TV and then I was on my phone, and they just do it repetitively. And you're just like, I do it once or twice, and then I have to get a good night's sleep.
Yes, it's so important. And you know, as somebody, I think I've got more of my mother's genetics. We're kind of a little bit more, I wouldn't say prone to anxiety, but we're just a little bit more alpha type A personalities, and we think a lot, and we're always trying to be conscientious. I think in ancient times we would have been the people at the front of the cave at night, you know, watching for saber-toothed tigers, whereas like my dad's genetics, I think he'd be like the caveman at the back of the cave, just sleeping very soundly. You know, like we all have different, I think I'm Vata Pitta in Ayurvedic constitutions. There's Vata, which is more airy, Pitta kind of middle of the road, Kapha is more like grounded and really bigger boned and able to really fall asleep and stay asleep. So for me, being more high strung, having a good sleep hygiene is so important. Like I take the Symbiotica sleep formula. If you want a discount, you can use the code WILL15 at symbiotica.com. But it's basically like 1 gram of melatonin. I know some people don't believe in taking it, but that seemed just a little bit of melatonin with like it's chamomile. It's I think there might even be some 5-HTP. There's L-theanine in there. I do like saffron. There's certain things. I like chamomile tea as well. And then I like to make sure that I take it half an hour before bed, and then I meditate. I brush my teeth, I do my whole thing. I say, Alexa, turn the lights to red. Alexa, lights red. There we go. So I turn all the lights red, and I find that helps. And I just, I have a whole protocol that I do, and it's really important. I even wear silk pajamas. I got that idea from my friend Steven, because he said, you know, we're all spending so much of our time in bed sleeping. We should be sleeping. We should be wearing some nice clothes while we're sleeping. And I used to sleep naked, but I found because I do so much semen retention, I would get too horny and I would end up humping my sheets all night.
Wow.
And so, because I only ejaculate once or twice a month. So, and even though I do all this transmutation, sometimes at night, I just get really horny and it makes it hard to go into deep sleep. So what I found is wearing the silk pajamas, it's kind of like a cue. It's like, okay, it just, for whatever reason, it just calms me down and I just feel less horny and just more chill. And I can do my meditation and drift off to sleep. I usually drift off to listening to a podcast. I find that helps. And, but yeah, no, sleep is so important. And I find if I get to bed earlier, like the Ayurvedic people say, if you go to bed at 10, that's the best time. The couple hours before midnight, they say, is like really good for recharging and rejuvenating yourself. I don't know if that's true or just an old wives' tale, but you know, I find if I go to bed a bit earlier, I seem to sleep better or wake up more refreshed.
If I sleep 10 till 6, that's like seems to be a good spot for me.
Nice. That's what the Ayurvedic people say is ideal.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. I'm doing something right like again without knowing.
Rhythms of the planet. Yeah.
Well, you've already mentioned would choose a podcast over music, so that kind of aligns with what you're saying. And to me, that one, I think that's yeah, music's great, but a podcast is obviously giving you the opportunity to learn, and I think it just would release. It's still going to release dopamine, but not in the same way as music. I think music can sometimes just be a way to drown out people's own thoughts, which they don't get. Where I think a podcast can be thought provoking, so that's probably another good reason to do it over music.
Yes, and it's not like 100% black or white. I do know it's just in most cases people are listening to like Western pop music, which I think a lot of is it's almost like a way to brainwash the masses. It's like, my lover left me, I'm nothing without you, I need you to be complete, that whole thing. And I feel it's programming people to feel like they need a partner to be complete. It's kind of like the Prince Charming thing. And I'm like, no, like if you're listening to high vibrational mantra music or frequency tones, I think that could be something nice to listen to sometimes. Like I'll listen to certain tones like 528 hertz, which is apparently the heart chakra frequency when I meditate sometimes. But in general, people are not listening to that they're listening to like death metal and Taylor Swift. And I think some pop music is good. And sometimes it's good to have a catharsis. Sometimes you're feeling low and then you play Over the Rainbow from Wizard of Oz and you have a catharsis or something. Like, I think there's a time and a place for kind of music that kind of reifies victimhood.
I know exactly what you're saying, because I listen to death metal and Taylor Swift right next to each other. Yeah. Sometimes
there we go. So you get
sometimes at the same time, and I try to listen to which one I can hear better.
In one ear and the other ear. Just to get the full dose of low vibrational trash. No, I'm just kidding. But there's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah, I think I like it anyway. It's like once again, it's not a bad message, right? No one's gonna not be satisfied from that. Like I'd be very hard pressed to find someone who was like, oh, I listen to a podcast instead of music, and I found it really hard to sleep. They'd be like, well, maybe the podcast you listened to was too interesting. Then maybe you need to find a less interesting one.
And I just think it's really hot, like a guy who's always wanting to learn more, and I think it's a great trait. It's like curious about life and wanting to educate himself on topics that he finds jazzy.
Yeah, anyone who's like stunted themselves that's just like a super unattractive quality in anyone, whether it's a friend or even like family members. I've found myself just like, I just reduce my time around them because I'm like, I don't like the fact that I don't have a lot of a relationship with my old man, and he's like the worst for it. Like last time I saw him was like 6 years ago, and when I've seen him in between, but we don't interact. But I saw him, and he was like talking about how like the Holocaust didn't happen and all this crazy stuff.
This is your dad?
Yeah, and I was just like, oh my god! I was like, dude, you're just that guy. Like,
what did he think about COVID? Was he?
Oh, we didn't see each other, so I never got to hear. But
I don't know what his perspective was. But it would probably be quite out there if he didn't believe. Yeah.
His problem is it's not the same as the way that you go about it. That's probably why I feel the way that I do about it, and I am the way I am as a person. He's literally has no control over his emotions. Is an incredibly angry person. So like anything that he felt a certain way about, he would just lose his mind about. And it was a big part of the reason we eventually just stopped seeing
boundaries,
because I was like, I just can't have you in my life. You're too negative.
No, that's good. Sounds like you made a good choice, and
you have to sometimes. You can't choose your family, But
exactly.
So there's a few things here in terms of, I'm going to put this one in together. So eats lots of steak, organ meats, and eggs, and then you've also cooks with butter, ghee, and tallow.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned before, meat, eggs, things like that. I'm a big fan of as well. I don't cook with butter or ghee or anything like that, but only because of the high fat content, which isn't an issue. But I typically, when I eat food, I just don't have a lot of. I prefer a more higher carbohydrate diet, as I depend on it better for performance. So when I'm doing a lot of jiu-jitsu or weight training, my body prefers it more. I find if I go like higher fat and even higher protein, I just don't feel as good. So if I actually have a little bit lower fat and my carbohydrates are really high, I just perform a lot better. But that's just a personal thing.
Like that. Yeah, everybody's a bit different. I think in general with that point, so many people are not aware of seed oils and how inflammatory and chemically they can be. Like so many, if you go to a restaurant, they're not going to be using like good quality butter or even olive oil. Typically, they're going to be using rapeseed oil, which is also called canola oil to
Yeah.
try to make it sound better. And it's all just inflammatory. And the way that they make it involves so many chemicals. I would highly doubt that some of those chemicals would not end up in the final product. That's kind of what I mean with that, is like somebody who's aware. It's like, oh, let's get some good quality oils to cook in, rather than just like eating out all the time and just filling themselves with glyphosate inflammatory seed oils.
Yeah. I agree. I don't actually, I found out that you're not actually meant to cook with olive oil. I don't know whether that's 100% true, but I have like a friend who's
Oh,
a chef. Then they were saying that you're not meant to cook with it for whatever reason, or like you can. There's
really?
nothing wrong with doing it, but apparently it's not optimal. Like but you
Can be
probably use like
carcinogenic?
no, it's just like apparently the way it heats isn't 100%. It's not effective for the way that when you heat it, it doesn't work the well. So like, it's better to use something like coconut oil or something like that. Like
Okay.
those, which you probably have. Coconut oil is fairly
Yes,
natural.
I use coconut oil too, and
Yeah.
I that's interesting because I heard that coconut oil has a very high smoke point, which is good, or is that the word? High,
I think
low?
so. I
I don't
think
know.
that's
It's good for cooking in high heat. Yeah.
yeah, that's the thing with olive oil. Olive oil, I actually prefer because I don't use it. I don't really eat butter where I used to, but I actually like. I will use a teaspoon and I'll actually put a bit of olive oil on, like toast before I have put eggs on it because I find that it allows
Oh.
me to still have like it's a really good inflammatory, like fat to have.
Oh yeah.
So I don't obviously want heaps of it, but I find doing a little bit of that. You know how like kind of Italians do that? They put like they get the real crunchy bread and use like a little bit of oil.
Yeah, I love
I,
that. Oh, that's a good idea.
it tastes really nice.
Nice.
We've talked about cold plunging in the sauna. I feel like we covered that, so I won't bring that one up. But then you mentioned, I'm going to actually put this one together because they're both to do with fluoride. Fluoride.
Fluoride?
Um,
Fluoride.
doesn't drink tap water. And then
Yeah.
you've also written uses fluoride-free toothpaste, which is very
Yeah.
similar, right? Because the point with tap water is that it's full of fluoride.
Many places like Vancouver, they don't fluoridate the water, but many places, especially in the US, they'll fluoridate. And also in the UK and in a lot of towns and counties, they'll fluoridate the water. And, my brother went to his hygienist and she just randomly started talking. She's like, oh, all these conspiracy theorists are ridiculous. Fluoride is amazing for you. It's great for your brain. It's great for your glands. It's great. It makes your teeth strong. She's like, oh, they're all full of shit. But you can easily just type in fluoride brain health on PubMed, or fluoride pineal gland, fluoride hypothalamus pituitary pineal gland. It's all there. Like it's a neurotoxin. It's in rat poison. Fluoride is not good for humans, and it does not strengthen your teeth. It actually makes them more prone to cracking. It makes them more brittle. If people want to use a toothpaste with some sort of additive, I would recommend using calcium nanohydroxyapatite toothpaste. That's a compound that was actually discovered by NASA, and you can get it in Canada. Hopefully you can still get it. You can get it in Oz as well, but it basically does a similar function to fluoride, but it's not neurotoxic. In Vancouver, they do not fluoridate the water, but a lot of people are still going to mainstream dentists and getting the fluoride trays, which are actually just going to make your teeth more brittle over time, and trace amounts are going to go into your brain and fuck up your pineal gland. It's all there on PubMed. See, that's most people are like that hygienist who is trying to debunk it. She hasn't actually taken the time to do her own research. She's just regurgitating whatever she learned at dental school.
Yeah.
Right. It's all people who, if she actually did the research, I'm sure she'd go, oh shit, or she'd deny it. It's like when I said Pfizer has the largest criminal fine in history, I posted that on my Facebook, and this girl was like, that's not true. It was actually Merck. And I was like, actually, sweetheart, you haven't done your research. Pfizer paid the largest criminal fine and Merck paid the largest civil fine. Like there was some kind of differentiation, and then she just blocked me. Like some people don't want to know the truth, so then they'll just block you.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll put out there, I don't know if I can find a study, and I'll link it to you as well, but there's a little bit of interest behind. There's actually like some fairly interesting, well, there's one study I read, but I heard that there's a few. I've only looked at one, but there was an interesting one about calcium. And obviously people are always talking about how it strengthens your bones. There's an interesting study behind that actually not being the case, in the sense that it's actually kind of like a general myth. There's a kind of thing that people would say all the time. And also, I found it interesting that recently I found out that excess calcium, like let's say you were supplementing it or you were having a lot of food with it or whatever, can actually inhibit the ability for your body to absorb magnesium. So
Right.
it's an interesting thing, but that's just that's just like an electrolyte conversation in itself, right? Like electrolytes are a
Yeah.
funny one. People really don't understand balance, and they just think I'll just try to get lots and lots of as many of them as I can. Where it's like if something has 600 or 800 milligrams of sodium in it, it's not good just because it has that amount in there. And there's nothing really wrong with something having sodium in it. I'm not talking about packaged fucking noodles either, obviously. I'm talking about something that has a decent amount and it's a healthy food. You need to make sure that you're balancing it with the other three electrolytes, or the other three more main electrolytes as well, right? It's like having a bunch of potassium is great as well, but if like you have a shitload of sodium and have not a lot of anything else, and you're not drinking a lot of water, then you're going to be like, oh, I've got headaches and I have a dry mouth, and
Yes.
and you
I
might
will
get
say
cramping.
just on the fluoride thing before I forget, the fluoride issue, I don't recommend, putting, like my parents put fluoride in our water because they didn't know any better. They put multiple drops of fluoride every morning in our orange juice because they thought it would strengthen our teeth. And I always joke that like maybe it strengthened my teeth, although there's no really evidence to show that. But it really fucked up my intuition. But I have been detoxing, and I find things like Kundalini yoga and certain things are good. But in terms of the fluoride, the one type of fluoride that I would recommend in certain cases is something called silver diamine fluoride. And that's not something that you would ingest. It's something that you would have a dentist or a hygienist paint on your cavity so that you don't have to get it drilled and filled potentially. So it's been used in places like Japan to heal cavities, quote unquote, naturally or less invasively. I would use that if you had a cavity. I would not get it filled at first unless it was like gapingly huge. I would try using something called minimum intervention paste, which is actually invented in Australia, MI paste for short, the non-fluoridated version, because it's got high amounts of bioavailable calcium and phosphorus topically that go right into your teeth to strengthen your enamel. I had a friend whose son had 15 cavities, and the dentist was like, we're going to have to fucking put him to sleep because he's got so many cavities. We're going to have to drill all these, and it's going to take like an hour. And so she went to another dentist because she didn't want that for him. And he's like, well, let's try MI paste, which was invented in Australia first. It's got a patented formula called Recaldent in it. So they had him put the MI paste on his cavities every night before bed, and it remineralized, it halted all but 2 of his cavities. He only had to have 2 fillings instead of 15.
Wow.
Yeah, so I would use silver diamine fluoride in conjunction with MI paste. And then I would make sure that, I was having a certain diet, like things like fermented cod liver oil, vitamin D3, vitamin K2, natto, which is like fermented soybeans. I'd have certain things that are known to help your teeth and gums thrive. But that's the one time I would recommend fluoride because I used that I only ever had one cavity in my life and it was huge. And the dentist is like, oh, fuck, this was like in my cocaine days. I wasn't taking care of my teeth really. And he's like, oh, fuck, like you have a huge cavity. I remember he put his tool in. It was all spongy and painful. And I was like, is there any way I can heal it naturally? He's like, he just laughed. Like all the hygienists are like, this is fucking huge. Like you're going to lose the tooth if you don't get it filled. But I just was like, I wanted to educate myself and see if there was a way. I believe when there's a will, there's a way. So I did all this research. And I came across Nadine Artemis, who I had on my podcast, and she wrote a book called Holistic Dental Care. And she doesn't believe in fluoride. That's where I learned about how it can cause your teeth to actually be more brittle. I just followed her protocol for like 3 years. I didn't see a dentist for like 3 years. I did go to a hygienist once a year. And then I went back to the dentist, and he's like, yeah, you don't need to get a filling. Your body's remineralized it enough that you don't need to have a filling. And I used silver diamine fluoride. I had the hygienist paint it on 6 months apart, two paintings of it. And yeah, so there is hope. You may not have to get your cavity filled depending on how big it is.
Interesting.
Your body may be able to remineralize it, and you might be able to use MI paste from Australia to help you.
I'll have to look into it because it's here, so I'm assuming.
Yeah, check it out.
So I know they're going to need to use Office soon, so I'm going to try to get through these because I really want to hit every single one.
Let's do it.
Doesn't
Awesome.
trust the government. Is I feel like with what you've already said about Pfizer, I feel like we've and just some of the stuff we said about what happened during COVID and stuff, that one's already been fair enough
Kind of
covered.
self-explanatory.
Yeah, I think so. At this point, if they've been listening to
Yeah.
this long, then they hopefully they have been.
Hmm.
There is two here that I'm gonna put together because to me they kind of go together in terms of things you add to your body. So you've wrote doesn't wear aluminium deodorant and wears 100% cotton or merino underwear. I personally have really sensitive skin, and if I don't wear cotton, I have a lot of discomfort, and like polyester especially is like horrible. If I have polyester and I sweat in it, horrible. Like
It's horrible, right? And it stinks more and it leaches. They've done studies where they put pants on dogs of polyester and cotton, and the ones that were wearing the polyester underwear, their testosterone and estrogen went all down. And like the females, the estrogen was depleted, and the males, the testosterone was depleted. It just fucks with your endocrine system.
Yeah, okay. And then
especially when you heat up, when you sweat.
Yeah. And the deodorant, was it a similar, like when you say that about
so when you're putting aluminum in your armpit area, that's going to go into your lymph nodes, and that could cause cancer. That's not good. You don't want to be putting aluminum into your bloodstream and near your lymph nodes. Not a good move, I don't think.
Yeah, okay. I don't use deodorant. To be honest, I've always been.
Oh, good.
I smell fairly decent naturally, but I also shower regularly, which I think is important as well.
Yeah, that's the best. You don't even really need it. I just use, sometimes I'll use a bit of sandalwood based. It's called From Living Libations from Nadine Artemis. She makes a really nice underarm, just sandalwood kind of essential oil thing.
Yeah, well, I use the only other one I have is it's like a little deodorant. It's interesting. It's more of it's like a cologne, but it comes in like a hard paste I got from my hairdresser. And I think it's like natural stuff as well. And you literally just you swipe your finger on it and then just go like this. And then it just smells kind of nice. But I do that if I go out. I still probably don't. Me personally, I just do that. And then when I shower, the only time I try to not use soap. I use soap every day, but I try not to. If I shower more than once, I try to not. So I'll try to use soap.
So you don't dry yourself out.
Yeah, I'll try to use it at the end of the day, so I'm washing sweat off. Whereas in the morning when I first wake up, I don't necessarily need it. So I'm like, unless I'm sweating in my sleep, then I would. But
cool.
And when I do use soap, I use like the stuff that's not deodorized or whatever. They have so it's all like simple soap or whatever they call it.
Nice.
I found it's better for my skin. So
yeah.
In here that doesn't black out every weekend. I mean, I feel like fucking no one needs to. Surely this should be on everyone's list, right? Like it is definitely an epidemic of people doing it, but surely we just all know you just shouldn't be getting hammered every weekend and blacking out.
Oh yeah, and there's other ways to get high. That's why I'm so passionate about breath work and bro bonding. It's like it gets me way higher, and I can actually remember instead of because I did have some experiences where I blacked out in my past, and I would lie to myself that I wasn't an alcoholic. I just need to have organic wine. No, I'm an alcoholic. It does not work. That substance does not work for me.
No,
I can prevent myself from having the first drink, but once I have the first drink, I'm hopeless, and I'll just keep drinking until I, either black out or do something stupid like go onto Craigslist and hire a female prostitute to suck my dick and waste like $300.
Yeah, that does not sound worth it at all. That's
no.
$300. Wow. It's okay.
Yeah, it was like $280, and then she's like, "Oh, if you want to have full on sex, give me another 500." And I was like, "No." And then I remember having like a bird's eye view. I was like, "This is not my best life. I need to stop."
Definitely. Yeah, getting head from a prostitute doesn't seem like you would be feeling the greatest.
Not my best self. No.
Post nut clarity.
Exactly.
So you've written No's birth control is poison in here, which is an interesting one. I've had partners before who've had like full blown issues with it, and it's a real shame the way that we've been made. It's great that we can reproduce, but it's really annoying that sex without condoms, especially if you're fertile, I'm a fertile person, results in immediately impregnating a woman, because I just think it's
right.
I also hate condoms. So it's this kind of like annoying place that we're in, because
there is a nice Australian condom company called Glide, and I like that they hand make their condoms out of real rubber from a rubber tree. It's kind of fun. GLYDE. Check them out. It's
Blood,
from your
okay.
country. You got so many great companies down there, bro.
Well,
My God.
I will have to mention this. I didn't before when you mentioned the tap water about not drinking tap water. If you're thinking to yourself, well, I drink tap water. Where do I get other water?
Go
One
to
of
a
the
spring.
waters that you can, well, spring, but one of the companies that I don't have one with me today because I just didn't bring one, but I should be drinking them every single podcast. I was sent, Liquid Death.
No.
Liquid Death is like a thing. It's big on like a couple of podcasts in America and stuff. But what they do
Okay.
now is they do like canned water, and so they choose like it's like this
Oh,
canned water, but the can is like it's like infinitely recyclable because of whatever they make it out of. It's like so it's incredibly environmental, and
nice.
the goal for the company, the Australian, well, I don't know if it's the Australian version. I'm assuming so. They're called Thirst Trap. And so they kind of like I made a joke about them, and they reached out to me, and then they sent me like a whole bunch of them.
Oh,
So now I can drink them
oh,
on the
epic.
podcast.
Do it.
I'll have to do like because like I don't know if we can do something where like maybe one of the products you're talking about or whatever. It'd be cool if we set like unless I come over there eventually, it'd be cool if you I'll send you like a little Australian pack. I could send you some of the stuff that we have here
Yeah,
that
we
I
could,
use, and then
and I
you
could
could
send you
maybe
some
just
of mine. Yeah.
yeah, something from Canada because you speak about so many products, and I know I can go and get them from sites and stuff, and obviously I still could do that. But I just mean it'd be cool to send each other like a little care package of just these things that we
I would
both
love to
don't
do
have.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um.
cool.
So yeah, they're like so it's Australian. It's 100% Australian spring water in a can. So if
Nice.
you don't want to drink tap water, you can go thirst
Get
trap.
that.
I don't get
Yeah,
any.
totally.
I don't get
And
any
there's a
kickback.
book that people, okay, yeah. There's a book people can read if you don't believe me about, it's not just fluoridated issue for tap water. Because say like your county doesn't fluoridate the water. It's like, well, then can I drink it? It's like, I don't know. It's the best choice. Like look at the pipes, the lead pipes in many places. Look at there's a book called Estrogeneration where this guy did a PhD study on like municipal tap water and he tested it and it's like filled with birth control pill runoff. Like guys don't want to be ingesting birth control pill runoff. That's going to fuck up your hormones.
Yeah.
It's going to make you less potent, less of a man because you're basically like the women's as places like with a low to the sea level, like Florida, they have really high levels for whatever reason of birth control pill runoff in their municipal water.
Wow. Okay, that's an interesting. Make sure we get that. What was that book called again?
Estrogeneration. I can find the author.
Estrogen. I feel like if we looked it up, that would hopefully that would come. That's a interesting one that definitely has to be on the list.
Yeah. So it's not just fluoride.
No. I'm trying to think. I want to get. I like the gets daily sunlight and grounding is a big one for me. The sunlight one is
Yes.
a big one as well. But I put not too much either. That's the other thing.
Anthony J. PhD. Estrogeneration. Anthony G. J.
Anthony
PhD.
GJ.
There you go.
Estrogeneration. There you
Yeah.
go. Okay.
There you go.
Good.
But yeah, sunlight and grounding totally. Oh, that's huge. Like having your bare feet on the ground. That's why I run into Earth Runners because they're grounding shoes. That's why
Yeah.
I have my foot on a grounding sheet right now because I'm in a high rise.
Yeah. Well, I'm wanting to get. There's a company called Barefoot. They do like barefoot shoes, and obviously there's a couple of companies do it, but they do barefoot boots. I'll send
Nice.
them to you. They're so cool.
Oh,
I love them. I love the
I'll
way
have to check
they're
it
like
out.
really. I don't know. They're like really manly looking work boots, but they're barefoot.
Oh,
Like they would be really good to hike in, and then that way your foot's
oh,
like fully protected. But you get you obviously you like your foot because I'm big on foot health. I try to not wear shoes, and if
yeah.
I don't, I wear Crocs if I can because I like my toes to
Oh,
have freedom and be able
are
to.
these shoes grounded like earthed?
Yeah, so they're like they've got like the full soles in them, so they're like have you heard of like the barefoot shoes where they like it's almost like there's no sole underneath it. It's like
Well, I've heard of barefoot shoes like Vivo, but they don't have the grounding technology, so you're still cut off from the electromagnetic field of the earth.
well, I'm not
So I'm
sure
just
about
wondering. I'm
yeah.
wondering if the ones that you're recommending have the like, for example, my Earth Runners, they've got a little copper piece on the bottom that's connected to silver in the laces, which you can test it. You're grounded. You're connected. You're giving the extra. You're receiving the negative ions from the Earth, and you're giving your extra positive electrons to the Earth. So it's like it's as if you're walking barefoot. So I wonder if the company that you're talking about has that, or if they're just zero drop.
I'll link them to you as well. But then I'll also, I'm sure on their website it would say whether they do. I just love the style of the shoe and love that they're barefoot. But obviously, if they do that, that would be a bonus. I'm assuming
That'd
more
be
companies maybe should at least surely that wouldn't
more
hurt the
people are getting
manufacturing
on
process.
more people are getting on the bandwagon with that. So it'd be, maybe they do. Who knows?
Yeah, if you're going to go as far to make it a barefoot, surely that would make sense to add in.
Yeah.
You've got like uses natural remedies when sick, but I think like I'm 100% on this anyway. I personally don't even think. Sometimes I take a Panadol and I'm like, is there any? I don't even know. Is there anything even in this? Like sometimes I take the really cheap like home brand Panamax or something when I have a headache, and I'm like, if I think this works and it makes my headache go away, I'm fine with it. At least
yes.
At least I'm pretending.
And I'm all about like symptoms. Like our society is all about symptom suppression or putting band-aids on things. But like German New Medicine, it talks about how usually when symptoms show up, it's because your body feels safe enough to heal, some kind of program that it's going through to make you stronger. So it's like you don't want to necessarily always be suppressing symptoms because maybe your body needs to like detox. Maybe that runny nose is you needing to like detox from something, or maybe there's some sort of emotional conflict shock that you went through and your body needs to complete some kind of process to make you stronger than ever before. So if you're just suppressing things all the time, maybe you're kind of stunting your body's ability to heal on its own and to, build back better, as they say,
I feel like I'm being called out because I have a runny nose. It's been doing my head in for the last half an hour, but I think it's hay fever, and there's also an aircon pointed directly at me. So that's probably
that could be part of it. Have you heard of neti pots? You could do a neti pot. Oh, they're great. It's like this pot. You put warm water, you boil the water, then let it cool so then it's pure. Put in the sea salt, maybe a little bit of colloidal silver, and you just like let it go up one nostril, out the other.
Yeah, no, my partner did it the other day, and she like I freaked out. I was like, what's that? And she was like, oh,
what are you doing?
You clear it. Well, I didn't think it was bad, but I just hadn't seen it. And I was like, but also because obviously your nose is connected, so it makes sense. But it just came straight out the other one, and I was like, I've not seen someone do that. And she was like, oh yeah, like I do it all the time, and it like feels so much better straight away.
Oh yeah, it's so good. I love doing it in the winter months, especially. Just it's kind of like brushing your teeth. It just makes your nasopharynx feel super clean.
The other thing I want to look at is the nose strips. To open up your nose a little bit more, because I struggle with mouth breathing, but that just comes from I think cigarette smoking really fucked it up, to be honest. I used to blow a lot of smoke out of my nose, like it's just kind of how I smoked. Now I don't know what it is. I struggled to gain back my sense of smell after I quit. It's been pretty bad. But yeah, so you've written has hobbies and passions in his life, which, I mean, Jesus, if you don't have passions and hobbies in your life, Jesus, it must be boring.
Totally. And there's nothing more sexy than a guy who's like really on fire with something that lights him up. Goes back to that, like, don't ask yourself what the world needs, ask yourself what makes you come alive. Go and do that. And I think it's good and if you could figure out a way to monetize your hobbies and your passions, even better. My mantra is I get paid to be awesome. And, in order to be awesome, I've got to walk my talk and do what lights me up. Otherwise, I got no light to give anybody else. So it's great to be able to figure out a way to get paid to do what you love.
Well, the podcast is one thing I can say that for as well. I mean, I put a lot of effort into this, and then for 3 years I did it for nothing. And then I was approached by 1 or 2 people, and then now there actually is some sponsors on. And while it doesn't, I'm not paid enough to, not do anything else. This is just part of
but that's great. It's
income, but
building. Yeah,
it's building, right? It's exactly. So
momentum.
I don't think I've missed anything else. I think the only thing. Yeah, I think the last thing here is just has some type of daily spiritual practice. Obviously, you do a lot of yoga. We talked about meditation and breath work. So that's sort of what you're referring to.
Yeah, it's just some kind of, we call it like a sadhana. And I think the most powerful aspect of like Kundalini yoga, for example, is the daily practice of just something. And so for me, I combine kind of different things and I connect to like what I feel are my ancestors. And I'm learning Scottish Gaelic right now. And instead of always just chanting in my yoga practice Sanskrit, I'm actually chanting in the language of my genetic ancestry as well, which feels really juicy. So yeah, just who has some kind of spiritual practice where they're basically connecting to their breath and their body, and thus they're what we call your true self.
Yeah, I feel like it's something, like I said, I need to do more of it. And breath work, I think, is the route I'm going to go down. Meditation.
Wim Hof method. I did some Wim Hof method in the shower before this. I really love that.
You'll have to text it. What's that? Winhoff.
Wim Hof, Wimhof. Yeah, basically you just take 30 to 40 deep breaths, like, and then on the 40th breath, you inhale and then exhale and just hold out as long as you can. Focusing, I always focus my nuts. Sometimes I'll slap my nuts to really keep the energy down and low. And then when you can no longer hold out, you inhale and squeeze all the energy to your brain for 15 seconds. And then exhale. And that's one round of the Wim Hof method. And it gets you high as fuck.
Wow. I'm going to try that later today or tomorrow. That's because I want to try
It's nice to do before you're cold plunging because it gets you nice and warm and high.
We've just had a recovery center open here where they do cold plunges. I got in there for a little bit. I struggled. I need to warm up to it. Well, warm down.
Try the Wim Hof. Do 2 rounds of Wim Hof before you go in. It might help.
Yeah, okay. I definitely will because I would like to do it. My partner got in. She sat in there for 10 minutes. I look like a pussy, but I was like, I just really struggled. I struggle with cold. I can do heat. I can do heat. Heat doesn't bother me at all, but cold is something I need to get used to. Something I want to do more of, though.
Nice.
That's pretty much it. I think I made sure I do all that. But you didn't. I like that someone called you out in the comments and they said, I don't see naked bro bonding, though. And then you wrote,
oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was funny that wasn't put on the list. But yeah, I would say, like, for example, any of these things are better done in community. Well, it's nice to have your own practice too, but it's nice to do things in community. It's nice to do things without clothes on, or at least not wearing polyester clothes made by slaves in China. Mm-hmm. And just, all these things can be even more powerful if you do it with your bros naked. Even if that's too much, just do it with your bros with like your shirt off, like play some naked sports or do some naked breath work or shirtless breath work. Just like get used to like being comfortable naked around other humans, because that's, it's like RuPaul says, we're born naked and the rest is motherfucking drag.
I love that quote from RuPaul though. Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah, right.
No, look, I like the list. That's why I had to go through it. We've gone well over 2 hours, just like we did last time.
Whoa.
We had such good conversation. But it's funny because we also had a 40-minute conversation before we started.
Right. It's been like 3.5 hours.
It is. It's gone crazy. But it's just like it's conversations that I enjoy, and I really hope that I don't know how many.
Yeah, it was so nice to talk to you.
Yeah, been since we did last time. But yeah, I hope we kind of maybe keep it a regular thing, and maybe every couple of 50 episodes or something like that, we kind of join in again and have a chat, because I think
yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, I'm really headed in the direction of things that align a lot with what you do. And I believe in natural solutions. I believe that not everything can be. There is technology is going to do things for us that is going to be helpful.
Technology is great.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But a lot
I just like voting with your dollar. It's like, Pfizer has paid the largest criminal. It's like, I want to vote with my dollar. I want to support companies that are good people who don't lie and bribe doctors.
Yeah.
I believe in technology. It's got to be like a reliable company. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the same thing even with sponsors and stuff too. So I'm going to give a shout out to Achievement Apex and Power Pit Rockingham, both good people that believe in me, and also just like companies that I know that I can rely on, that are not full of shit and trying to make a crap load of money.
Yeah.
Nice. Thirst Trap, I can't really speak for, but I mean, they seem all right. They're making water and putting it in a can. They can't be too bad.
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds
like just pretty not good. Fluoride in it.
Exactly. Yay.
I'm assuming it would be a waste to get 100% spring water and then ruin it with fluoride.
And then fuck it up with fluoride.
It would be such a waste. But one thing I'm going to say a few things. Will Blunderfield, or not Will Blunderfield, on Instagram is where you can find
Will.
You can find a lot of Will on YouTube if you want to watch. I think the full documentary that you did with Channel 5 is available on there now.
Yes, it's been abridged a little bit compared to the one they released on their Patreon, because of obviously you can't have certain things on YouTube, otherwise it'll get flagged. But it's basically, they've blurred out our genitals. So
at least now the content can be out there, so you can find that on YouTube, and then you can find Will Blunderfield music pretty much everywhere. I choose Spotify, but that's just where I stream my podcast.
So nice, Spotify.
And on YouTube, and also the Urban Yogi podcast as well, which is Will's podcast.
Yes,
they can come and listen to you as well.
Yes.
I think I've covered all bases in terms of social media for you. I think.
Thank you.
So,
and willblunderfield.ca.
Yes, there you go. So it's
Not .com. Somebody took .com. I used to have it, and then somebody else bought it, and then they were pretending to be me. They were like doing like music therapy things, and they're like, "Oh, I'm a yogi." I'm like, "This is not me." So anyway, it's willblunderfield.ca.
oh, how frustrating. That's
Yeah, .com is somebody pretending to be me at willblunderfield.com.
well, lucky you've got the blue tick now.
Exactly.
I will. Yeah, I shouted out the guys as I always do. A big thank you to Will for being here again, man. It was great to talk to you. Thank you for coming on again.
So nice to connect again, man.
Absolutely. And it has to happen one day in person, because as great as this is, and this
I would
is
love
technology doing this for us, right? There's nothing quite like having conversation in person. So
amen. We'll set the intention.
Absolutely. I will keep on striving over my end, and then I have looked at exactly how much it is to go to Canada. And so I've got a bit of saving to do, but I will make it happen.
Sweet. Okay.
We will talk in the meantime.
Sometime I'll have to come down under. I have been to New Zealand and I loved it. So I'd love to come to Australia sometime.
You have to come. You would love it here. And if you ever come here,
but I would.
like obviously I would do what I can to help you out, to have somewhere to stay and all that sort of stuff. You have to come here. It would be so awesome. And we could go with some wicked runs as well. There's some
that would be epic.
Yeah, it'd be really, really good. There's some wicked places to go for a run. That's why I'm in the process of dropping weight. And when I get down to that comfortable 90 kilos again, I can't wait to start running. Not that I can't do it now, but it's a lot less comfortable. But like at 90, most I ever did was like 35Ks, which wasn't huge, but it was far from me.
That's good.
So yeah, I would love to go for a run together one day, and we could podcast.
Let's do it.
Eat some meat and do some manly
stuff. Let's have some liver.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be epic.
I'm going to give a shout out to my mother, as I always do. And it's been a great podcast, man. Let's do it again.
Thank you so much for having me on your show again, man. You're such a sweetheart. Thank you for being you. And thank you for being the change that you wish to see in the world. This is what we need.
I thank you for the same thing.
With big balls. Thank you. Big balls, a nice smile, and kind. We need more kind men with big balls who can't be pushed around.
But
who are also kind.
Yeah, that is absolutely something I totally agree with. I want to finish the podcast with you just saying before. You said something, and I'm going to use it for the title of this podcast. You said your 3 S's. So can you say your 3 S's? And I want you to say them, and then I'm going to end the podcast.
Superfood nutrition, sex kung fu, and semen retention, baby.